All right, what up, everyone? Welcome to BlastCast, episode 6, I believe. This is the 6th one? Or the 7th one, is it,
I
Grim?
think so.
6 or
Yeah,
7?
I think so.
Anyways, what's up, boys? Welcome. I'm joined here by Elesshar and Grim, and we're going to be talking about
Yo.
the announcement. And yeah, this is the first time that we get together and have a good chat about sort of everything that we know about the new league, Scourge. Everything is looking pretty insane so far, but regardless, we're going to be talking about, the new uniques, builds, the patch notes, what we think looks good in the notes. And then we're going to round out with basically maybe what we're going to be restarting and what we recommend or things like that. So yeah. What up, boys? Thanks for joining. How you doing?
Yo, what up?
Yo. Doing good.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's start off with the big one. The Scourge League announcement, the new league details. My God. Quite literally the most excited I've been for a league, like an actual league itself. Not counting expansions, but damn, they have completely nailed it in my opinion. As long as they pull off everything they explained, it's got it all, man. What do you guys reckon? What was your first impressions?
Are you going to now? Okay.
Go for it.
I think it was one of the best leagues. The mechanic that you can just go in and out is really nice. You get to choose when to fight the mobs. And the rewards seem really, really cool. You have so much potential for upgrading your gear in the late game. And some of the corruption are really build enabling. So you can save a lot of points traveling to notables and stuff like that. You can get arrows if you're going for a bow build. You can get some crazy stuff. Most of it we don't even know. There might be some crazy stuff that we find out while we play. It's so exciting. It can open up a lot of build diversity.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
I was if you were to watch my stream of when the announcement was happening, the whole time I was just pogging basically. I was more like just everything they showed on screen, I was like, what the fuck? Because the mechanic looked so good. The uniques they showed off were really good. Just everything looked so good. So
also the video quality was just way better. How they edited and made the video compared to what they did in the past. I feel like.
Yeah, I think
the mobs looked great. The music was spot on. It was so much more hype, the video itself, compared to other leagues, I feel like.
I think thematically it's really good. Obviously slaying demons in an alternate screwed up world is incredibly cool. But I think the main thing everyone focused on, and you guys touched on it already, is the scourged items. That's the big part of this league, being able to corrupt your items, without as much risk as, for example, Varlorbing them and potentially bricking them. And the payoff is way, way bigger than the normal Varlorb. And you can do it multiple times. So I wanted to kind of open up a bit of a discussion on how you guys think this is going to be used, because there seems to be a few camps of people. Let's start off with the items first. Maps are a different story, but items first. Some people think, why would I want to corrupt my items? There's no way I'm going to be corrupting my items. What are you guys? Are you guys going to be corrupting all your items? What do you guys think?
I am, definitely. So this is how it's going to play out early league, okay? Mark my words, you'll see in early league. You craft your item with probably early game you get life and some armor, or if you're evasion or yes, or just yes if you're just killing yes in your CI, and then you get some good suffixes. Maybe you get some influence mods really early, and after that point you go in bestiary and corrupt it with bestiary for 30% quality. This achieves two things. You not only not spend anything corrupting it, because the beast is really cheap, is 10C, and it doesn't break, and it gives you 30% quality, which means you save a lot of crafting costs on your chest from either perfect fossils or 30% quality from from betrayal. And it doesn't give you the chance of breaking the item, so you can directly put it in the baking machine that you can get implicits.
The oven.
The oven.
Yeah.
The oven, dude.
Yeah.
That's actually a good idea. I didn't think about the 30% corruption thing, but yeah, that's smart. And I also think that it's going to be just interesting to throw in just even as you're like leveling, right? You're gonna be able to put in some items and stuff. You find something, you chuck it in and get a little bit of a bonus, or maybe actually make your item unusable for yourself, but potentially good for someone else. So it's always, when we're in trade league, you know, we, even if something might not be good for us, it might be good for someone else. So I feel like there's always no downside to this, unless you're playing SSF. But even then, if you're playing SSF, it adds a whole new level of sort of min-max and a trajectory into where there's like layers of like min-max that you can do on your character. So it just extends the like how much you're willing or how much you want to play, because of how much you can do to then further enhance your items and your character and things like that. So I mean, like power fantasy being the number one thing that we strive towards in Path of Exile, just getting more power through these sort of unstable means, I think is a great way to go about.
So you guys are both of the opinion that people are basically going to be rocking, 10 scourged items, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what you guys are saying?
Because you can do it on a budget early, and like over time you upgrade into like some crazy stuff that you just double corrupt and then you cry and gold with the Scourge. You can still do it on a budget with just some essences and a base chest, and then you like corrupt it with Visery so it doesn't break, it's guaranteed. And then you, like I said before, you Scourge it, and it can go all the way to perfect mirror item with like 61 mods with double implicit and double corruption, which is like impossible to get. So like there's gonna be like all types of investments that you can do, I think, in Scourge.
Yeah, so like that's an interesting topic you brought up, Elesshar. So obviously the Scourge mods are incredibly powerful. They've got both like insane upsides and downsides. Like, some of them giving keystones, seen +1 arrow, we've seen +1 gems on chest and stuff like that. So you're pretty much going to want to have these on your items. But where does that leave crafting? So like you've got your mirror tier on one end where you mirror an item or you're making it yourself to because it's like perfect, everything is 6T1. But then you've also got this scenario in which you're going to have to probably like throw 10 or 15 of these in the furnace to even get anything usable, because of the downsides and the chance of actually getting anything good on your upside. So how are you possibly gonna get the good item at a level that's strong with the Scourged mod on it? What's the strat, dude?
I think it's just gonna be similar to last league, that you probably spend like 20 to 50x on one item mid range, right? Like on bow builds like you did last league, every piece of gear is like 20 to 50x if you want elevated mods and awakened mods, right? And then you have to go for the Scourge to get like those implicits. And I think it's not that risky to Scourge it, because if you get really bad mods, you can always get to the next tier and get different mods, right?
It becomes more and more unstable, though, I think. And also,
what is the chance of breaking it, though?
It doesn't break.
It doesn't break.
Yeah, but it could be that like something breaks it for you, right?
Mm.
But one thing about it as well is that if you do want to bake it, what are you gonna run? Like, what are you actually using while it's baking?
True.
I think since everyone is gonna be doing this, there's gonna be like a lot of corrupted items in the market that are already baked. Because if you think about it, like most of the items will need to do this, and then they can't be upgraded anymore. So people are just gonna sell them off when they get the next upgrade. So I think in the market there's gonna be like a lot of mid-tier items that people are just selling to get to the next step, and you can use some of those. Or like just whenever you get a successful Scourge, you just wear that item until your next piece of gear is ready.
I think the interesting thing about it, though, Elesshar, is that there's 3 tiers of Scourge mods. There's T1, which you get guaranteed when you bake it once. There's T2, which you get guaranteed when you bake it for T2, and then T3 when you bake it for T3. So, like, we obviously don't know the chances of getting a T3 mod at T1, but is there a world in which you have to bake it 3 times, and then, it could potentially roll, like, no physical damage on your physical damage bow, and then you're screwed?
Yes.
Maybe.
That's the whole point.
You can also like convert the damage that you do to not being fizz, so that doesn't really affect you anymore, right? You can like build around it. unless
whole
it breaks
build.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the way it's worded actually is that because you deal no physical damage, it just might mean that you have no physical damage
No.
instead. I don't.
It always
I don't
says
know.
No, if you convert,
you
you should
deal
be
no physical damage. Yeah. So, I mean, I think from
Okay.
as far as there's never anything that says like deals no, because it's not a local mod, from what I understand. You
Yeah,
know,
it's like the
you deal no blah 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 damage is not a local mod. So if you convert, you're completely fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I mean, there shouldn't be as much downside as I thought then, because like pretty much most builds use one damage type, right?
Yeah.
And that's all we've seen, which really just destroys your character. With there's a few others, like let's say you're playing crit and you roll Resolute Technique as a keystone. It's like you can't get rid of it. But outside of that, I think you're right. You're probably just going to be throwing absolutely everything into the furnace. Even like, would you throw in a Headhunter?
Yeah.
It depends. It also depends on the list of modifiers that we can get on implicit, right? Like in item by item, it might be different. For example, on a chest, it's probably going to be really, really good to get Scourge implicit because it gives you keystones, which saves you a lot of points on the tree. On other items, if you don't get like as good as bonuses than on chest, for example, on rings, we saw that you get like 20 reds or something like that, at least from what we saw in the spoilers. If you don't get like a really big payoff, I don't think it's always worth it to go for scourging, because like your ring is locked once you corrupt it, right?
Yep.
It's
I
like
mean,
hard
by
locked, you can't change it
divines
anymore.
Yeah, that's fine though, right?
Yeah.
I think by the looks of it, there's like pretty bad mods, which are like the T1 mods. And then there's obviously the keystones, which I'd have to assume is the T3 mods, right? But we did also see on gloves conductivity on hit. So, I mean, you can kind of assume that there's going to be frostbite as well as flammability.
Yeah,
that's pretty good on gloves already, right?
Especially since on gloves and rings and stuff, when the curses are on hit, they have increased the effect, which is better than the actual like normal curse.
Yeah, silly.
It's actually, I don't understand the concept that if you link something with X touch and you actually like curse yourself using a hit, is worse than an implicit on like an item that is relatively kind of easy to get, right? You should be rewarded to actively use the link with X touch and a curse. And
I mean, that's another topic.
yeah. But that's kind of weird.
But it's a level 1 curse, right? The curse on it on gloves.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You put it in PoB, it's weird.
If you put it in PoB, it's weird, true. Yeah, we checked the other day.
It is level 1 though, as far as we know.
So. Yeah, but I think it's fair to say that, most people are going to be, baking up all of their items, like even some of the more expensive ones, assuming that there is, a chase to be had there. There's some good thing for them to get. But we've seen a mechanic like this before, but but more restrictive in synthesis. And people regard synthesis as one of the least rewarding leagues, at least in the first few weeks ever. And that's because people didn't correctly identify the worth of these bases, the power creep involved with synthesized bases. Do you think that people might be a little bit disappointed with Scourge early on, just because they're not corrupting items, they're not leveraging the power of the Scourge Furnace?
I don't think so at all, because of... Okay, this is a little bit of a... It might be a weird take, but going from this league to next league, everyone's gonna feel like this is amazing. Regardless, even if they didn't add a new league mechanic or baked items or anything like that, because it's like this league was pretty rough on a lot of players. So then getting to the next league and adding all the quality of life, knowing that there's gonna be like this extended game outside of just like what they usually do, like the Alice grind and whatnot, that they can maybe aspire to do, the aspirational content and whatnot. That's gonna drive people to sort of enjoy themselves more than in the past. So that's one aspect to it. And the second aspect to it is that it's an in-map mechanic. And there's a lot of monsters to kill, and it's gonna look really good. So it's just gonna be loot from monsters, and you can juice that. So you have a lot of control over how far you can go with it and things like that. So I think regardless, it's gonna be fun. One thing I could see people complaining about is getting one shot, because the longer you stay in there, the more damage you take. So that's gonna be pretty bad in that regard. But it's their fault entirely that they didn't jump out. So I mean, most of the time, when I imagine people complaining about these things, and I'm also kind of guilty of doing this, in the past, playing a lot of really squishy builds or whatever. It's like I just imagine that meme of that guy on the bicycle and just putting the stick into the wheel, saying GGG did this,
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah.
The thing you talked about between synthesis and Scourge, the thing about synthesis, back in the days when it just released, it was really like we didn't have any information at all. It was really hard to make bases. People didn't know how it worked. People didn't know that the bench actually worked for synthesis bases. And on the market, for example, there were like barely, on the first like 1 or 2 weeks, there were barely any energy shield bases. And I was just printing mirrors like every day because like I was just crafting the energy shield on the item and then synthesizing. People didn't know this. That's why I think didn't get like a lot of recognition. Like people didn't really like synthesis because it was way harder for like player at the start, like people that are not like really experienced with the game, or like didn't test the mechanic or didn't have enough currency to test the mechanics. But like in this league, it's way more straightforward and it's like more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
You just get your good item. Once you have your good item that you're like happy with, you just put it in the thing that everyone has access to, and you get back some random outcome. And also, people really like gambling in this game. Like people really like gambling in this game, and there's like you can gamble like even cheap uniques that you drop on the ground and potentially get something good out of them. I think it's just good.
I think it does open up an interesting scenario though. So one of the most common questions I get, I'm sure you guys get it too, is, hey, what should I use my double corruption chamber on every single time? Or like, what's a good item to double corrupt? So we've seen that you get at least 2 item equipment slots to be baking at once with Scourge. What are you guys actually going to put in there? Let's say that on average it takes five maps, or maybe even 10 maps, I don't know. Let's go with 5 to bake an item. That's a lot of items that you're going to have access to. So what are you guys even going to put in there? Because you're not going to have a gear item that you're going to be using every single time.
To be fair, I don't think you need to have something in there all the time, right? Or maps.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
then you're not getting rewarded for the mechanic, or from that access of it at least.
Maps, I suppose.
You can't put maps in the 2 equipment slots, it seems. There's a specific map slot, which there's only 1 of.
And I think you can unlock slots as well with the passives.
Yeah, so it seems like there's 2 equipment slots and 1 map slot. That's from what I've seen. So, like, are you just going to be, like, bulk buying shavs, just, like, just keep throwing them in?
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Now, there is something that does remedy this a little bit, and I've touched a little bit on it in my video. There are passives which actually do things. So the best example of this is one which basically means when you transform or bake an item, you can have an X% chance to connect an unlinked link, right? So the obvious thing to do there is to throw your 6 sockets in there, just bake them, all the time, and they'll turn into 6 links potentially. I think that's probably the only thing which I can think of, which I could easily say, okay, that's what I'm putting in there every single time.
For divines, though, right? You're just doing that for divines, essentially.
Yeah, for designs, yeah.
I think like if you put an item in there, it needs to be corrupted, right? Or that like it corrupts the item.
No, it doesn't need to be corrupted.
Does it get corrupted once it gets the mods though?
Yes.
Yeah, it gets corrupted.
Okay. So you can skip the step to 30% quality if you really want from the bestiary because it gets corrupted by itself. And I think just normal items, like you drop a lot of good items if you just pick them up rare from the ground. Just life res, you craft something, it's like usable. And then if you get a good implicit, like to a good Scourge mod, it's still like an okay item that you can sell for like a few chaos to a few X.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
depending on the point of the league, like you can bring like those items that are like okay to pretty good. I think
we have Rog too, right?
in.
So what you could do is you could just use your Rog, craft a few gloves, whatever. They don't have to be insane, and then you put your gloves in and get conductivity on hit or whatever else, right? So
I do think the real value probably will be from scourging uniques though. So let's take a unique which previously couldn't be corrupted, Essence Worm, right?
Yeah.
This is like a pretty popular unique. You
That's
can
right.
put it in the furnace and you can get it, maybe even I guess on here, we don't know. But like this is like probably something that you should be doing with multiple uniques and make sure that they're cheap. You know what I mean?
True.
For example, just gloves. The fact that we saw the curse, right? Like really, it's really easy to get good gloves, like usable gloves, just life res, right?
Yeah.
If you get on top a curse, those are like sellable gloves that on a normal league will sell for like a few X.
Even if you think like
Yeah.
Null and Void and like all these cool gloves that are actually like incredibly like common, right? They're not.
Yeah.
It's a bunch
I
of
think
uniques that are just
also-
good, and then imagine you get like Null and Void with a PoE corruption on them. That's already insane. Like,
Also, the fact that we can enchant helmets now with while being corrupted, it opens a lot of possibilities also on boots, because usually you don't really like getting corrupted boots, even though they have like they're possible good implicits, because you can't get an enchant like penetration or attack and cast speed. But now that you can actually run lab and enchant corrupted items, I think it opens up like a lot of good element boots corruption, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
True.
Absolutely.
maybe hopefully it incentivizes. Like if you get like a good helmet, but you don't have a enchant on it, then it incentivizes someone to actually run lab for it. Maybe like a
Yeah.
unique or something like that. Usually it's like about like I don't know 15x to pay someone to run an enchant for you. I mean, there's that opportunity cost there. But most of the time, I don't know how many times you've seen maybe a unique helmet. You're like, that'd be cool for my build, but there's no enchants. Or like you have like
every
a
time.
power charge implicit on a helmet, and you can't get it enchanted, and you would probably pay 15x for it, right?
Yeah, that's big. That's big. I think it's an interesting topic though, because one of the biggest issues with softcore economies is that once the items are there, for the most part, they never leave. Because, you know, why? I mean, unless people are double corrupting them or vendoring them, the price will just always infinitely go down. But now with Scourge, people are like, I mean, if there's a unique I need, the logical thing to do is just buy 20 of it and throw them all in the furnace until I get what I want, right? And, you know, the 19 of them, am I going to resell them? You know, maybe there's something that comes out of that, which is good. But chances are I'm pretty much just destroying them for the most part. So overall, I think it's a really good thing because it's going to be taking uniques out of the economy, and it might even make things like stay at a reasonable price for a little bit longer.
I mean, they won't go out of the economy, but they might become useless in a way, right?
No, that's the same thing though, right? If people can't use that, it's destroyed.
Yeah. But maybe there's a use. Like, I'm not even sure if there's gonna be something that just completely breaks an item. If that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, it's specific. So, like, obviously, if you get deal no chaos damage on something and your chaos damage, someone else might not be, and you can sell
Yeah,
it to them. You're
yeah.
right.
But definitely like a resolute technique cost breeze, like, yeah. I see what
Yeah,
you mean.
that's
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so it sounds like we all think that Scourge is going to be pretty damn rewarding, and we're all pretty keen on it, which is good. Now, there is obviously the potential to Scourge Maps, which is pretty much the new aspirational endgame or endgame loop of Scourge. So traditionally, you go in, you know, you're probably going to get a few entries, and, you know, the normal monsters are just going to drop the corrupted currencies and, you know, maybe some other stuff like normal monsters. But in Scourged Maps, we've seen that the rules change. The actual entry into the Nightmare Realm is different, but more importantly, it basically has a spin on Nemesis monsters drop 3 additional currencies, but for pretty much everything from what we've seen so far. We've seen rare monsters drop 3 maps, rare monsters drop 7 stacked decks, you know, we've seen currencies, and we've even seen rare monsters drop scarabs. So this is obviously completely insane. What do you guys think of Scourge Maps? What are you guys going to be doing? Are you going to be doing them?
Yeah.
Do I go? Definitely. My goal is just going to be Nemesis 3 currency like last league and just do like Scourge Maps. It's going to be so good. I can
Not
already feel
Nemesis
it. It's going to
3.
be so good, dude.
Please, not like this. Maybe I'm a hater. I don't know. I hate Nemesis 3. I think it should be removed from the game. It's one of those things that creates too much of a gap between This is not an argument about that, but since you mentioned it, it's kind of like when something is so rewarding, it diminishes everything else, right? And it's okay if that's a league mechanic because that's new and fresh, and later on it gets balanced usually, whether it's through it not appearing that much or whether it's through, them actually rebalancing it. But if then everything devolves down to, I'm gonna do 100% Deli, Scourge Map, Nemesis 3, like, holy dude, that's just...
The thing is that if you don't run Nemesis 3, you cut a lot in your profits, right?
I mean,
it's like you have to run it if you want to juice the map a lot, or you cut too much into your profits.
But then you're just pigeonholing yourself into that yourself. It's like you're doing it to yourself, right? Because it's like you're investing so much into your map, and then you're like, now I'm forced to do this because otherwise it's cutting into my profits. It's almost like you're just creating like a bubble in a way.
It depends. I think it depends, Elesshar, because Nemesis 3 has, I mean, it doesn't have diminishing returns, but obviously, like, having 7 stacked decks per rare monster in the Scourge dimension.
Yeah, that's great.
That's like more than you get per rare monster in the real dimension. But obviously it stacks. Sextant modifiers apply in the Scourge realm as well. But I mean, there's no question it's probably going to be incredibly rewarding. Obviously, this is like basically almost on the level of Delirium kind of rewards pre-nerf with what we've seen. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the actual mechanic of shifting in and out and how it interacts with, monsters. So the way it works, from what we understand, is that you slay an amount of monsters, you get Scourge charge, and then you can shift in for what seems to be around 25 seconds. Now, the monsters they showed them killing was incredibly small, even in the map footage. Obviously, if you take a map, it doesn't have that many monsters in it, but the amount more monsters you can add through Delirium, through Sextants, through Scarabs, even in stuff like Masters like Alva, is completely obnoxious. You can add so much. So are we just going to get people in there with 40-minute maps? Because they're just able to go into the Scourge realm so much. Because the other key information here is that Scourge monsters, confirmed by GGG at the time of right now, actually spawn again every time you go back in.
That's crazy, yeah.
We don't exactly know how many of them will spawn and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think we might get into a scenario where maps might take a long time. Although I think there's going to be sort of you're going to be soft capped by how much you can go in, because every second you take 1% increased damage when you're in there. So, I mean, there's going to be a point where you're taking 200% more damage, and if a monster breathes on you, you're dead, right? So, I think that's what they're hoping on. They're hoping on you just getting sort of there being a soft cap to how much you can go in, because of that debuff.
Another problem is you're going to be hard capped by the amount of monsters in the whole map and the concentration of mobs, because I don't know if you remember during during harvest, when we could make our garden, right, and we were just stacking the whole thing of T1 seeds, right, to just get as many beyond the stacking mobs all close to each other as possible. It was just every time, if you had 20 plots, it would just crash the map eventually. So if there's that many mobs and you just keep spawning them over and over every time they respawn, if the loot is gonna all drop in the same zone in the map, you're just gonna crash after a while. It's actually just gonna crash.
But we have the loot not showing anymore on the filter.
Yeah.
Oh, true. The new loot system. Maybe it fixes it.
Maybe
it just seems...
Sorry, go on.
Oh, go ahead, Tuna. Okay.
Well, maybe actually Nemesis 3 won't even be that bad with the stacking currency. I don't know, who knows? But still a pain in the ass to always roll it, right?
I think you won't even need Nemesis 3 currency, because one thing which people don't I tweeted this out. The more and more I think about Scourge, the more and more ridiculous it seems. So you can Scourge maps up to 10 times. But the main thing I wanted to talk about here is that the way that you actually Scourge a map is by slaying Scourge monsters. And what we're talking about here is juicing to the point in which you can be in Scourge for a large amount of time, which is going to allow you to juice a Scourge map even more. right? So you're going to have this scenario in
Self-sustaining.
which you're self-sustaining Scourge Maps, so you could potentially just be running Scourge Maps forever, assuming you juice your maps enough.
That's cool. I think that's cool. But also, there's gonna be like sort of in these mods that make it so you have no control when you're going in and out of the Scourge.
Yep. Yeah.
So
that, I think the jury is out on that one, because they showed, like, for example, one of them says when you slay a unique or rare monster, shift into the nightmare for 15 seconds. But then they also showed that exact same mod, but without the 15 seconds. It just says you shift in. So we don't really know how that's going to work. I don't know. Do you guys have any opinions on that? Because obviously, like, if you were shifting in every 15 seconds, every rare mod you kill for 15 seconds in a map, like with Beyond on it, you'd be in there for like an hour.
yeah.
Are the maps tradable? Do we know?
Yeah, they're tradable, yeah.
If they're tradable, there's definitely going to be like a market for them. You just buy the maps already done.
Yeah, that's a good point. So obviously, is there people who are going to be buying a specific like tile set with Nemesis and Beyond with Scourge 10 on them? Probably. How much is that going to be worth? 2 or 3 exalts, probably, I would say.
It'd be worth
Just
to
based
maybe
on-
like look into that. That's part of your sort of moneymaker, right? Oh, it's almost like scouting. Like you're scouting a map for someone and finding the good mods and then selling it to them, which is like I think it's cool that you can create value for someone else by. That's the cool thing about trade, right? Even if you can't run the content, there's a place for you in the economy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think let's talk a little bit about the difficulty though. Tuna touched on it earlier. So every second that you're in the Scourge realm, you get a stacking debuff on you, which makes you take 1% more damage from Scourge monsters. So this does have diminishing returns. It obviously doesn't stack on top of itself. So, obviously the difference between 1,000% more damage and 1,100% more damage isn't actually that much. So is there going to be like characters which are just going to be like, just able to just stay in there forever? Like, 2 million armor stacker, transcendence, all this stuff. Like there's obviously now a reason to have a character like that, assuming you can stay in there for that long. What do you guys reckon?
I think you're going to be like checked by the damage that you can take and how fast you can clear the mobs, because you have a limited time of staying in there. And if you don't kill mobs fast enough, it's not going to be as rewarding. So like how tanky you are and the clear speed are going to be like 2 checks that you need to like tick before doing good profit in those maps.
It's almost not even about damage, is it really? Because there was one which was like Scourge monsters have 150% more life, but compared to Delirium, 97% less damage taken. It's not. You don't need that much damage, right?
We don't really know how tanky the mobs will be, but compared to Delirium, if you can do Delirium, you're probably going to be able to do Scourge. Unless you mix them together and then you're Delirium and Scourge, that might be kind of crazy.
Which you can do.
Yep.
You can do 5 orbs. But yeah, I think this is definitely going to be a reason. Like the levels of juice you can achieve, we've never seen it before. It's going to be pretty crazy, and you'll need a good character to go up against it. That's the good thing, right? And maybe you need like full Scourge mods to even have a chance, which is really cool.
I think 100% Deli levels of juice were pretty insane, but I think the fact that you can then stack Deli on top of this might potentially go out of hand, but it's more of I guess whether it's worth to actually run that sort of content and how time consuming it is, and sort of opportunity cost of how much time you invest into every map. Because at some point maybe it's better just to like run less difficult maps but more of them, I suppose.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And juice the Atlas, because the Atlas passives are still very strong, and yeah. I think we lost
Brick.
Grim. Do we brick Grim? Oh, we actually lost Grim. But overall, oh shit, we're actually completely bricked here.
He said to swap to Singapore. There's no route.
Oh, okay. Swapping? Hello? Testing? Yo.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, you cut out when you were talking about whether it was worth to run it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that like maybe it comes to a point where it's better to run like less difficult ones and run more of them per hour, and also juice the Alice because of the passives. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Beyond is also on the map device though, so that's
yeah, like getting
it's
Beyond on
pretty-
top of that is just insane.
That's
It's
so
honestly
good.
insane because I think as good as Mage Blood is gonna be, having like a HH and running Beyond on this might seem. I think it's gonna be pretty crazy, honestly.
The thing
Yeah,
about
no, I
Beyond,
get. Okay.
sorry,
Go ahead,
the thing
Elesshar.
about
No.
Beyond on the map device is that if you like want to run Headhunter, it's so much smoother. Like even if you don't want to super juice your maps, just having the option of Beyond, it's so much nicer. If you wanted to juice last league, you have to like hard roll Beyond on all your maps. If you want to do Nemesis 3, now you have to. If you want to do Nemesis 3, you have to hard roll Nemesis, but it's easier to roll on maps. It has a higher weight, and also like you're not forced into it, because before when you were hard rolling Beyond, you were like spending around 15 to 17 chaos every map just hard rolling it. So like your initial cost of running the map was higher, so you were kind of forced into running Nemesis 3 to make back the cost. But now you just put it on the map device for a few chaos, and if you just want to run maps fast with the hunter buffs, you can just do it. And also you get way more XP than you do, because Beyond is like the best league for experience. If you do a race, you always put Beyond on the map device.
Yeah. We'll have to see how much XP this league mechanic will allow us to have.
Beyond is crazy. It's like one of the best.
I think there's definitely like, I mean, already I'm thinking like, man, I want to have a level 100 because those last few passive points actually really do count.
Yeah.
So like I like, my brain is like, I need the best character I can possibly build right now for Scourge, which is really cool.
Definitely. And all the other
Did you guys
content
have
too.
Yeah, the Ubers as well. We haven't even talked about that yet. Did you guys have anything else you guys wanted to talk about with Scourge? We've spent quite a little while on it. I think it's fair to say it's shaping up to be looking like one of the most rewarding leagues we've ever had.
It looks amazing too. Like the way it looks so good.
Yeah,
I think it's such a welcome change, or because the only mechanic we've had that was sort of like completely altering everything was Delirium. That was literally just fog, like grayscale. Whereas this is like you're going in, it's like it feels like you're, it feels like you're like Doom almost. Like you're shifting and you're going into like hell or something. It's so cool.
It's really cool. Yeah.
And also like you get to choose how much of it you're doing. If you're like low on flasks and stuff, like, or like you don't want to go at that point of the map, you can just wait. You get like to choose like how you want to clear it. Like in Delhi, you're kind of forced into either, if you have like a Delhi mirror, you're just forced to rush, and if you lose it, you're bricked. But you can switch in and out. You can get the pace of the map as you want. You can like decide the pace. Or like on Delhi, if you have like the Delhi orbs on the map itself, the mobs are always there. If you're like, I'm about to die, you can just switch out, get flasks back, get cooldowns back, and just go back in. Maybe early if you don't have like such a good build.
I'm pretty sure that this is pretty much just their take on Delhi 2.0. Because if you actually look at it, you can Delhi orb the maps pretty much, but the Delhi orbs are free. So you get them just by playing. That's the scourging of the maps. The rewards are, in my opinion, probably similar or better. We'll see about that though. Let's need some testing. It's got bosses in there, which is exactly the same as Kosis and Omni. But it also, instead of having simulacrum and the uniques, it has the scourging of items. So it's like literally like Delhi and Synthesis had a baby.
I remember when we first talked about it, Grim. The first thing I said was like, this league feels like if they did Delhi but right. Because as much as Delhi was great for its time, it had a lot of things wrong with it. And I'm so glad that they did Delhi, so that then they can make this, because I'm sure they learned a lot from Delirium League start and how that went. And, eventually how also Delirium turned out with everything devolving into this sort of like cycle of 100% Delhi farming, buying mats, and do you know what I mean, right? Like as a softcore game.
The thing which I'm a little bit worried about is that everything might devolve into fully scourged maps. Like if you're not doing scourged maps, like what are you doing? But we'll have to see. There's obviously a lot of other content they're adding this league as well, which looks incredibly rewarding too. Which let's get onto that now. Or unless you wanted to add something, Elesshar.
I wanted to add that usually league mechanics, depending on the layout, are really bad or really good. I think that this league mechanic is going to be pretty much good in every map because you can just go back to like an open area and open the Scourge in a good spot. You're not forced into like getting a bridge on a bridge and you get 0 mobs. You can always like move and go where you want to open the mobs. It's like huge, I think, for league mechanic.
True.
It's like viable in pretty much every map. So you get like to run the maps that you kind of want if you like a layout, and you're not like stuck with a bad league on the map that you want to run.
And I want to add one last thing as well that I think some people didn't notice, but most people did. Is that what happens when you toggle the Scourge is there's a image of yourself that gets put where you toggled it. You can run around anywhere. And then when you get out of it, you get brought back to where you toggled it. So you don't have to walk back and forth and clear your map twice. But also, if you were to then retoggle again in the same zone where you toggled earlier, if you do manage to get the juice to then go back in, monsters respawn. So it's not like you're going to be put into a place where there's nothing around you. So every time you click it, your position gets saved. And every time you go in, there's going to be stuff to kill. So there's not going to be that weird backtracking feeling that also like at the start of Delirium, I don't know if people remember, but you could never stand still ever. And so what happened at the start of Delhi is we were clearing the map and then we were walking back to loot, which every map we were doing that. It was honestly, it was not that fun. So this is, they learned from that, and you can see that they learned from it. I'm so happy. It's so good.
Yep. I think you're right. All right. Uber content. So we've obviously just talked about one of the most exciting endgame leagues we've ever had, probably much. And that's all going to be there. But on top of that, on top of all of that, they also added new aspirational endgame in other parts of the game. So we've got Uber 5 waves, 10 more waves in the simulacrum, Uber Blights, and Uber Breachstones. So those are the 4 additions there. Let's start off with the simulacrum. What do you guys think of having 10 extra waves in the simulacrum? So I did the math on this, and it's at minimum, if they don't like add any additional Delirium layer rewards as you progress, double rewards from simulacrum in the last 10 waves.
Yeah, simulacrum is the one that I'm most excited about because I really like voices. Like if I had 1 passive voices, I would just put in every build. Like every league, whenever I play with Tuna, I'm like, yo, we have like 15 mirrors. Can I buy like 1 passive voices? Put in every slot of my gear. And like, it's so good, dude. I like voices so much. It opens up so much in your build. It's amazing. So I'm definitely going to farm some simulacrum.
I have some concerns about this. And Grim and I already sort of talked about this in private at some point. So this sort of like comes with a little bit more. So essentially what I'm trying to say is I've already put a bunch of thought into this, and I've talked to Grim about this, but I'm concerned about simulacrums not being a separate Uber item like every other mechanic, right? Because essentially like what you're going to have is you're going to have separate emblems for 5-way, you're going to have separate this and separate that. But simulacrum is just going to be, you can go up to 30. So the price of simulacrums is going to be dictated by people who can clear wave 30. So that's generally, I think that's really bad for Trafe softcore, obviously, because there's that opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
So that means that for the average player, it's really bad in general. Although that also means that maybe the average player could potentially get more money out of running Delirium. But there's no Delirium on the map device either. So essentially you're going to be buying maybe Sextons for Delhi or things like that. So I don't know. There's this side of it which I think I love about it, but also it being locked behind the simulacrum itself and not like an Uber simulacrum, that concerns me. So But everything else they did
Yeah.
well, right? Like they had a separate way to access the content. So this is the only one that concerns me.
I think it's going to be incredibly rewarding though, because they've also mentioned that the simulacrum now has a scaling chance to drop cluster jewels as you progress through the waves as well. And we have to assume that you're probably going to get additional loot tile and rewards as you go from 20 to 30, as well as obviously the additional chance at dropping uniques like voices and stuff like that. So I think overall, simulacrum is going to be a much more high-end piece of content, as Tuna says. It's probably going to be balanced around the fact that you can get to wave 30 by either people running in 2-mans or people with really good builds. But yeah, like if you're running Delirium content with Deli Orbs or, just getting the splinters, that means your splinters are going to be worth probably at least twice as much because you get twice as many rewards from simulacrum.
I think maybe they should have done something along the lines of instead of putting like a full stone, you just put 200 splinters and you only do 20 waves instead. Maybe so it's more accessible to everyone. If you can if you can do all 30 waves, you just put one stone and the maximum wave is 30. But yeah, if they put something that you pay less to do less waves, it might be good.
Yeah.
So everyone is accessible to everyone, because if you look at all of the other league mechanics, you put a lower version of the breach and you do easier content, right? Simulacrum is fixed, and if you can't do the waves, you don't get as much loot. But while you can choose what content to do in all other league mechanics, you can do two. When you do Legion, you can do 2 ways, 3 ways, 4 ways, 5 ways, and then you can do the Uber version. But in simulacrums, you don't really have a choice. You're just stuck with that one.
Too late now.
Yeah, it's too late. Maybe they fix it in the future.
I'm sure they thought about this, and maybe this is an experiment.
Yeah,
I know we're the guinea pigs in this situation, but I think maybe they're sort of running a little bit of an experiment here with that. So maybe there's some reason why they're doing it like this. Could be. I don't know.
It's also worth noting, though, that simulacrum, in my opinion, the primary thing that you need is actually a tanky character. You can get away with having under 10 mil on wave 20 just fine. The main thing you do need is defense, though.
True.
So I think that it's a very different type of build to head onto Juicer 5-way man, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I think overall it's fine. Which brings us to the Uber 5 waves. Probably, in my opinion, the hardest content they've added, pretty much full stop. To be able to extract the amount of value that you would need to get out of it, just due to the fact that the emblems, the Uber emblems, make it get harder and harder and harder every single time you reset the monolith.
That's just insane.
So, yeah.
So for people that don't know,
crazy.
it's well, we don't know exactly what mods are on the emblems themselves and if they're variable between them, but what we saw was that it was 4% penetration per reset and 10% life per reset. And I think there was other ones.
It's not really reset, it's per kill. So you can just skip mobs if you don't want to make them as strong. You can skip bosses.
It per kill? That's true, actually.
Yeah, every time they get killed,
the
next time they spawn, they become stronger. So if you can't really do the bosses, maybe you can skip them, but it's not really, probably not worth it to skip.
Yeah, and it doesn't really
it's probably
make a
gonna
difference.
be worth it to just kill everything.
Yeah, what I picture people doing is sort of if you've ever watched Steel Mage do 5 ways, he'll be actually oh, I want to kill him, and he walks up to him and just, and then walk up to another one, and but in softcore, I'm sure it's gonna be someone trying to juice it, but supports are gonna be, unless you got a group of 4 people linking with you, you're still gonna be pretty scuffed, because the way that 2-man supports are sort of in a place where it's kind of a little bit scuffed.
I think supports are as strong as ever, to be honest with you, Tuna. Yeah, they can't run all yours now, but they can still run the ones that count for the carry. So I think they're still going to be just as strong.
But, I mean, the damage score is right, but in terms of defense, which is something that you're going to need regardless, right? Yeah. And you got to remember that if someone dies, it usually scuffs your 5.
It does. So. It does. Yeah, you cannot be dying in them. That's true. And also, I think it's important to note that the minus resistance is actually hits.
One
the
sec, bro.
primary
One sec.
two-man combo
You're
that
lagging.
does the 5 ways, because then use Nebulous. And if your resistance
What happened?
Come again, Grim.
Okay.
You were full robot mode.
Actually, minus resistances, it's penetration. So your resistances
it's penetration.
is actually still 90, but
Okay, yeah, so you still use Nebulous.
it was having less. So it's like actually different. It's not like a map mod that your resist goes down. It's when the mobs hit you.
That's good then. I guess you can still use those builds then. But I think overall, people are probably going to be juicing it for the reward tiles for the most part, because the main mod on the Uber is the 10% improved rewards, which we don't know what that is, but it sounds like it's to do with the reward tiles.
It's improved, which is something that we haven't heard ever, right? In PoE, it's like what does improved mean? That's we don't know.
No idea.
It's not more.
I mean, it's
not increased. It's improved.
Yeah, we just don't know. I mean, it could be item level. Who knows what it is? Like,
yeah,
we can't tell.
What was the unique that dropped from there? Wasn't it like incredibly item level? Stasis.
Yeah, the stasis one. I can't remember what item level it was. It could have been like item level 90. I think. I don't know.
I think the Uber Blight one was item level 90.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure what item level that is, but yeah, it could be that everything is like super high item level, which I assume it's gonna be everything is gonna be like dropping item level 86 plus regardless. But I think improved quality might it might mean that you can, instead of like it rolls for a chance to drop a specific unique, but it rolls like a tier higher, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, high drop rates of everything and stuff like that. I mean, it could be that way. Yeah. You mentioned Blight, so we've seen some pretty good uniques come out of that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the Uber Blights, I think we touched on this last BlastCast, but it seems like they're probably going to be the easiest of the new Uber content from what we can see, I would say.
But they're also going to be pretty difficult. I feel like Blight bosses are pretty cracked, but definitely it's not going to be because of the nature of Blight as well, is if you have like a bleed explosion or explode chest character, you're going to roll that content, I think. Because it creates like this chain of things that like basically Ignite Prolif is good, but not quite as good as Explode Chest because of the way that like how much health the mobs have and them exploding for 5% of that. So if you get all these mobs together and you explode them for 5%, the boss is gonna die.
The other thing though, the Ignite Prolif will just stay on the ground and the mobs that spawn after will like keep chain dying to it. So you'll only have left over like a few really strong mobs that you can just single target. Also, I think it's not going to be insanely hard because you have like 9 annoyance, right? You can anoint the map 9 times. And if you actually do the mechanic of Blight, which is building towers, and you do it correctly, and you have like the rings, and you just don't face roll with the gear check, and you actually do the mechanic, you can actually make the maps really, really easy by stacking buffs, and like the scout towers are insane. You can do meteor towers to like really do really good damage on bosses. There's a lot of combination of towers that are actually like are really strong. And if you have 9 annoyance, you can stack reduced the cost of building towers, so you can just spam the whole map with towers. So I think it's not going to be as hard as we make it be. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the easiest one, in my opinion, but that's actually a good thing, in my opinion, because it means, there's some Uber content that, everyone can get involved in, which is good. And the unique reward, which we'll talk about later, is probably one of the best. And then the last one here, I think it's the last one, the breaches, which they revealed that not only the Uber breach stones, but normal breach stones get buffed as well. They get all their rewards dropping at the end. Yes. And they also gain rare monsters drop random items as well, similar to synthesized maps and Cortex, which, that's a pretty big selling point of those maps, the synth maps and stuff like that. Do you see more people running breach stones now with those new mods on all of the breach stones, or what do you guys reckon?
I think, running breach stones is really profitable, especially if you do like carries or like stuff with other people that you split the cost or you do the rotations. It's always profitable to run them. If you just go for XP, And I think it's just the loot at the end is great, and the increased drop, the new stuff is great as well. I think it's gonna be really good.
I like it a lot. Great change. Very
Yeah.
good change.
I think farming breach stones is probably going to be a pretty viable strategy. And obviously
Also-
the Uber breach stones are good too.
Another point is that breach uniques are usually pretty good. Like the amulets are really strong, and since there's gonna be like a lot of unique sync in this league, because you wanna corrupt them or you wanna scourge them and corrupt them for implicits and scourge mods, I think that the price of the breach uniques is gonna stay relatively high, not super high, but for example, Xoph's Blood is like really build enabling. A lot of build can use it, and it's gonna like keep some value throughout the whole league, just because of how good it is.
Yeah, there's a new unique in Uber breach as well, which is good. But also it feeds into the hidden as well, which obviously gives you Maven, which is good too. So there's just a whole lot of value in breach now, which is
really
crazy. And there's also quality of life. Yes. So that's the new Uber content. I think it's shaping up to be pretty good. Looks pretty challenging, especially with simulacrum and 5 ways. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun with it. And there's a lot of money to be made there, which is also super duper nice. Okay, so obviously it's not just all new endgame content and the new league. They've completely reworked the passive skill tree from pretty much like, I've never seen anything quite like it. It's completely insane. So they changed the pathing, they spread it out, they made it look pretty, but the main thing they did was add masteries. What do you guys think of masteries? My God.
They are insane. They're actually insane. The main problem with the tree is that you had to path and pick nodes, and you were stuck with like niche stats like increased effect of ailment that maybe not all builds want, or like some weird like mod that you don't really want. But now you go path, for example, you want fire damage or lightning damage, and then you can pick from like the pool of mods that you have there, and you can probably always find one or two that apply to your build and like that are really good for your build. From the ones we've seen, like there's always one or two that are really, really good for your build.
The one that really stands out to me is, for example, cold conversion being unique to Ranger. So now any cold cluster, you can grab 40% cold conversion there. We haven't seen them yet, but I'm assuming it is because we saw Chaos has that, Fire has that. We've seen those, so that's pretty good. I'm looking forward to that, and I also really like what they're doing with potentially adding like a really, really insane benefit. Like when they do have like these crazy ones, like for example with the Chaos, we saw +1 to all Chaos skill gems, but every time you use a Chaos skill, you take 10% of both your life, and yes, you lose. So which is not mitigatable either. So I kind of like that they're also like sort of daring to add these insane benefits that also have downsides. And I would also really like for them to potentially not set these things in stone, and potentially looking at masteries in the future to change them, or like keep them fresh basically, because I think it's an interesting system, and it could be it seems like it's quite modular as well. It's not like they have to put a passive on the tree and then that passive is there and people rely on it or whatever. I'm sure people are going to be angry if like recover 1% of life flash charges every 3 seconds is going to be gone next league, but like come on, maybe they could swap that out for something else, or I just really like the modular approach to how these like how these can be implemented and stuff like that. And I really like how you can sort of put these into your build, and what's not to like, right? It's just too good.
I think there's a lot of almost build around ones as well, like the attribute one that got revealed today. Gain 5 attributes per mastery you have. It's pretty interesting, I think, because there was something similar to that with what was it called? One of the jewels, and that was like had to be nerfed down to like 3. I don't know how strong that'll be, but I think it's interesting take that there's like these build around ones. I think there's also increased fire damage per strength. Which could also be quite interesting too. But it's one passive point.
Strength attacking boys were already converting with Avatar Fire as well, so at least some of them were. The ones that were not doing like only chaos and whatnot. So like essentially like there's some things that like strength stacking is getting a lot of love this league, and that's cool to see. So also, I mean, there's I really like that as well. The build around ones, pretty cool.
I think we haven't seen the intelligence or cold one, but strength is generally synonymous with fire. So I think there could be intelligence for lightning and dexterity for cold potentially as well. Which would obviously be insane. Anyway, I think the tree is just a big win, and I think it looks like it's like an overall buff for a lot of builds. I'd be pretty surprised if there was any builds which got nerfed by it. I'm sure there'll be one or two.
Because also, like before, they were struggling with balancing the tree because some nodes will be really strong for a build and really bad for another build. But now they can just put generic damage in the tree that applies to every build, and then you specialize with the mastery.
True.
So it's way easier to like balance the actual nodes in the tree, like the big notables, because like they're like global, so they apply to most builds, and it's like generic, so it's really good.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Couldn't agree more. All right. We've talked about the passive tree and the masteries here. Let's talk about the new uniques. So this, in my opinion, is one of the highlights of the whole patch. The new uniques are an absolute home run. And I thought we were only getting 6, but then they just revealed the 7th today. So I'm not sure what's up with that. But they are incredibly powerful. Some of them are a little bit on the niche side, but I think that the idea of them is pretty strong as well. Let's start out... Pardon?
They showed us 5 so far.
5. So there's the strangle one, there's the gloves, there's the chest, there's the belt, there's the other amulet, and then I think there's one more. Is it, or is this the 6th?
We're supposed to get 6, so we're missing 1 now.
No, I think we have all 6. We've got the shield, both amulets, the chest, the belt, and the gloves.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you're
That's
right.
6.
Yeah. The 6th.
So, okay, so yeah,
we've seen also. Yeah. You're right.
Okay.
I forgot about
so
the
let's
gloves.
start with the one which everyone's talking about, the belt, Mage Blood. So, I mean, I have my opinion on this. I think it's not as good as Headhunter in high juice situations, but it's good in low juice situations. And for most builds, you're going to want a Mage Blood. What do you guys reckon? Headhunter versus Mage Blood. Go.
Forget about the belt. Take the shield. Have you seen this thing? This thing is insane.
Get to the shield. We'll get to the shield.
I know.
I'm definitely gonna build the boss killer and just use the Mage's Blood and a mapper and just use a Headhunter. I'm just gonna use both. I'm just
I like how
characters.
it has strength and dex on it as well, so you could technically just hot
You
swap
can take
it.
Headhunter off and put it in.
Because that's always the issue, man. You're always like, I can't take this thing off now because I don't have enough strength and dex. What am I gonna do, dude? Don't worry about it, dude. Mage Blood got you covered. Bam. Holy. Yeah, it's a great belt, man. It's so good. It's so strong. I'm scared, bro. I'm scared that belt is too good. And I'm sure everyone's gonna want it, and it's gonna be really expensive. But that's exactly what people wanted, right? Like when this league gets released and this belt is expensive as shit, I hope people don't complain, because this is what people wanted. They're like, we want chase uniques, and they're adding chase uniques, and it's gonna be expensive, and people are gonna complain. Mark my words, dude. It's gonna happen.
It's going to be expensive.
Yeah, but it's worth.
I remember. I'm telling people I'm willing to pay as much as I pay for Headhunter for that belt, because it's just that good. It's completely crazy.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I think obviously I mean everyone's talked about the belt, so let's get into some of the more niche ones here. Let's talk about the shield, because Tuna really wants to talk about the shield. It was just revealed before the podcast, like minutes before. I haven't really even had a chance to think about it yet, but Tuna's hyping this thing up already to the moon. So let's hear what's so good about this shield. Explain what it does first, because it's kind of new.
I mean, it's very simple. It's got +2 to support gems, and then what it's gonna do is you can put 3 support gems in it, and those support gems are linked to your main hand. That's all it does, right? So imagine things like the very simple thing that people can think about, because a lot of people know this item, is you got Cosprey, you could trigger a spell, but if you use the shield, then you can have a 6-link triggering off in your Cosprey, right? So that's the very simple one. But there are so many things that have like let's say weapons that have sort of a special effect on hit or whatever that you're gonna be able to support, or you could have then, I don't know if you've ever had this, like when you're streaming and someone links you an item and it's like, what is this? This is insane. And it's like a one-hander with all these like supports in it. And you're like, I'm sorry, bro, this is like trash. But now that's gonna be insane with the shield, right? If you think about it.
That's the shield, guys.
Yeah.
That's the shield right there, yeah. Thanks, Ellie. So yeah, I
Is it
mean,
mirrored? Do you guys see mirrored?
no, it's good.
No, it's good. So I guess break it down a little bit more for me. So obviously Cosprey, the biggest issue with that build is mana, right? How are you? Okay, so if you take a 3-link and turn it into a 6-link, that's a lot more mana cost. Overall, it's gonna be pretty hard to trigger your Cosprey with a 6-link, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. It's gonna have opportunity cost, of course, but there's some things like, for example, on wands, like that you can craft. Let's say socketed spells have 40% more spell damage. That doesn't have a mana cost, for example.
Right. So I saw on Twitter you did put a 10-link wand set up there. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And like, do you actually see this having endgame use? Like, realistically, would you use this on a build? Is it better than having like dual wield wands, like double influence, or a wand and a shield, or anything like that?
Yes, 100%.
Really?
Absolutely. Because this opens up a whole new set of builds that you just couldn't do before at all. And it's not just because of the boring shaper weapon or whatever. There's some weapons that had like for example, like Hidden Blade is like a one that we can talk about that. It's not even that good, but essentially what you're going to be able to make it is you're going to be able to make it really good now, even though it was like kind of not that great before. Or essentially like the Harbinger sword could be really strong. I mean, it's the thing about the shield is that it's not just supplementary to builds, it's enabling, and that's what makes it great.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about these uniques is that you look at them and you start thinking about like a whole new set of builds that just couldn't exist before. Or like what people are saying, like Arakali's Fang, for example, which was already a build, but now it's going to be cracked because of this. So it's, yeah. You could even do like, like there's just so many options, and I'm really excited about the shield. I just really like how build enabling it is, and it's so good.
Go ahead, Ellie.
I'm most excited about Poet's Pen, to be honest, because it already makes your main skill really strong, because it gives you 3 or 4 levels, depending on what level you are. If you get to 100, you get 4 levels. And so your main skill is already high. It has a base high damage. It gets triggered as a pretty good trigger rate. And you can trigger any spell. It's not like tied to a tag like Cold or Lightning. It's range. You can support it with like stuff like Frenzy and like maybe Power Siphon if you want power charges. You can use your main skill with other support gems to make you feel better, like faster attacks, faster prods. You can like do a lot of stuff. You can do even curse on it and curse on it.
Life on his.
And the only downside was that you didn't have a lot of damage on Poet's Pen before, because you only had a 3-link. Now, if you can get a 6-link, it's gonna be crazy.
Yep. It's so good.
It's gonna feel so smooth to play. It's like old Volatile Dead, like before nerf, because before like the 3 nerfs of Poet's Pen.
I think what I'm hearing here is that this build, this is like, it's not like, if you compare this shield to the belt is like good on everything, right?
Yeah.
Everyone can think of how good it is on their build, but the shield, it's not really good on everything. It creates new builds. That's kind of what you guys are saying. It's literally, it's like build enabling, similar to how Hateforge was.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like the shield a lot more than the belt, because the belt, mind you, the belt is way more broken than the shield, but the shield, it's like it opens up a whole new like strand of things that you can go down and explore, and I like that a lot. Yeah,
adding new interaction between uniques is always really good, and like the most uniques that I added have this concept that they just add interactions between uniques. Like the amulet increases your links on your chest. Like, it's really good because in the future, if they stay in the same way that they're now, there's gonna be new interaction with new unique that they release.
Okay, so Elesshar just took us onto the unique there. The third unique here is the Uber Breach unique, and that is, I think it's called Ulnatul's Embrace. It's got a pile of positive or negative res on it, and it gives you +1 socket essentially to your chest, so a 7 link. Elesshar, what were you saying there? Did you want to break it down a little bit more for us? So do you think this amulet is actually good? Obviously, +1 gem link is okay, but what's the kind of looking like?
I think it's gonna be pretty good, but on most builds, it's gonna get outscaled by rares later on, because usually on a link, on the first few links, you can get probably like 30-40% more damage, maybe like 35% more damage. But the more links you get into your chest, the less damage you can actually scale from other support gems, because there's not as many support gems that are good. For example, after you get all the more multipliers, there's not as many good support gems. You can get some penetration, you can get crit multi, and like the damage get like diminishing returns with the more support gems that you get.
Do you think that's actually the case? So because we saw the new Awakened gems be buffed, and like Awakened Burning Damage, for example, just has +1 fire skills on it. And there's a lot of those just +1s, just you get a +1, you get a +1. Like, support gems became way more powerful. Do you still think that's the case?
Maybe if you use like all Awakened gems in the chest and then use a multiplier on the amulet, it might be good. Yeah.
Also, it has the variance. It's one thing that I didn't notice at first as well, but on the website they showed everything with +30 resistance, but on the video they showed that it could also go to -30. So potentially it's also like a Venter's Gamble in the sense that you could get all +30 res. So you might think that it's bad because like you see negative res on it, but it actually could be all positive, right? And so that's pretty good in that regard. So like it's not great, obviously. The only thing about the necklace is that you're comparing it to Awakened necklaces, right? So Awakened or Orbed, sorry. Not Awakened. So you get like +1/+1, so that's 20% more damage. You could get 38 multi, and you could get life, and you could get whatever else, Chaos Res. So an insane amulet will probably give you 30 to 33% more damage and life. If it's insane. But this was gonna give you like 25 to 30 just without the life, but the res. So my argument is that the amulet is actually pretty insane. It's just not as good as a perfect amulet, and it doesn't give life. So that's the downside. No life, but it's insane still.
I think it's also worth noting you're not going to throw your +2 perfect Awakened amulet in the furnace. You may throw this in the furnace.
Another point is, can this amulet get a good corruption? Because it loses the socket, right? Or is the socket an actual mod typed on the item?
It's an unset amulet. It's a new base.
Okay, right. So if it's an implicit, we can't actually get a good corruption on it because we can't regulate the fossil. You can Scourge it, yeah, but we can't actually get like a good implicit on it.
It's true. Okay. I think amulet's probably like, it's one of the weaker uniques we've seen, but it's also really, really strong. Like, if you're not talking top end here, and then you also factor in the fact that you might actually Scourge this thing, I think it's actually a pretty strong contender for an amulet people probably don't want to use. I can't imagine this would be like less than an Exalt, for example, for the first few weeks.
I'll buy maybe it is.
You reckon? Yeah, I mean,
yeah. What do you mean? It's a support gem.
True. Yeah, I guess it'll probably be pretty expensive. We'll have to see how it goes. So the next one here is actually another amulet. It's what is it called? I think it's Strangle Gasp. I think it's called the Uber Blight unique, which is an amulet which has no stats on it, but says it can be anointed an additional 3 times. So you can get 4 notables on the passive tree by using oils on it. What do you guys reckon? So I think at first glance, it looks like garbage, right? He's like, I thought, okay, 3 annoyance. Is that really worth giving up my amulet?
4 annoyance.
Well, I mean, you get 1 annoyance on a normal amulet, 3 extra.
True, actually. Yeah, that's
So
true.
you have
giving up
to-
6 mods for 3
Yeah,
mods.
you have to value the 3 anoints towards all the 6 mods on the amulet. But you can also corrupt it, right?
Yeah,
Go on,
that's where we get
Yeah, you
into
go
it
on.
actually being good. Oh no, you go ahead. You go ahead. Do you want to explain it?
So basically, you can actually corrupt the amulet, and you keep the anoints. We have seen this before on the 2 anoint helmet, I think, that if you corrupt it, you actually keep the 2 anoints on the helmet if you break it, and it becomes a rare, and you can get random mods. And you can also, if you double corrupt it and you break it into influence items, you can also get influence mods. So there's a lot of RNG layers that you can build it into, like a better amulet, into a rare. You first anoint it, and then you corrupt it and try to get good mods. And then you can also get the Scourge mods as well on top.
This is just
Yeah.
a perfect league for this amulet to be released, right?
Yeah.
Think about this, like you anoint it 4 times, and then you're like, cool. And then you corrupt it or double corrupt it, and then you get those implicits, and you're just like, okay. Or bricks, and then you get like it doesn't. You can't lose with this if you corrupt it, right? You can't
Only
can't
for
lose.
poofs.
It can poof.
Yeah, it could poof,
Yeah.
right? So I guess maybe you should val it. There's less chance of it poofing, but you could get the implicit, or you could get it to brick and then have stats. And once you do that, then you can bake it. So it's like 3 layers of corruptions where you just like, it's like, how deep is this gonna go? And the
Yeah.
only
There's
gamble
only-
on it is gonna be, do you want to first put the catalyst on it? So
Yeah. I mean, you definitely want to put. Oh, what catalyst though? I see your point.
yeah, you see what I mean, right? But obviously
Yeah.
that's
you
not gonna be-
probably catalyze it with life and mana, because I think when you val it, it might work as a chaos, so it rerolls and it gives any. Wait, they nerfed the chance.
they
It doesn't
nerfed
work
that,
anymore.
yeah, it
They
doesn't.
nerfed that. It doesn't work anymore. Never mind. But yeah, the only downside of that amulet, I feel like, is since they added the new masteries, right? If you anoint now, it only gives you the notable, and you can't get the mastery for allocating the notable, because it's an anoint. You don't actually have it allocated on your tree, and to get the mastery, you need to allocate. So you can only get the stats, but you can't get the mastery next to it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
For example, if you use a intuitive leap or the circle from Cyrus, I don't remember the name. You can actually allocate the nodes on your tree, and they're like hard locked. You have to like click on it to remove them. But on anoint, they're like different. You can allocate them even though they're still there, like they're already there. I don't know if you ever tried. If you have something anointed, you can still path and get the node after.
Yeah. I think the only question I have with this amulet is we're kind of basing its value off of what we consider a notable now. So like, you know, Whispers of Doom, right? Insane, +1 curse. Maybe what Whispers of Doom doesn't give +1 curse anymore. Like, it shouldn't, based on the mastery system, right? So I mean, notables would go down in power, kind of like relative to
so.
that because of the mastery system.
I
Do you
don't
think it's still going to get +1 curse?
well, I don't know about Whispers of Doom, but I mean, there's always gonna be notables which are insane, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Like when you put the list,
yeah.
it's like 8%, 7%, 6%, 5%, like, and it doesn't always necessarily have to be damage. I know we're softcoreans, and all we talk about is damage, but there's also other cool shit. Like maybe like taking, if you're a strike build, being able to get an additional strike, you know, like strikes one additional enemy, or you know, mechanical things, which are really cool as well.
Also, there's cool stuff like you do calling strike on marked enemies, and you get increased damage if that stays. It was really strong on my build last league.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of good nodes.
The amulet is like insane. It's surely one of the most powerful items in the game if it bricks correctly. But the catch.
Thing.
Oh, go ahead, Elesshar.
Another thing about the amulet is that there's you know, like when they added the notables that you can only anoint in the tree, the one that gives you damage based on mana, life, and then the projectile's return. You can anoint a lot of those at the same time, which is really, really good. Like some of those nodes are insane.
Yeah, they're good. Like Transfiguration of Mind and Soul and stuff.
Maybe you can finally play
I
a
think-
Wander as a ranger, you know? Because they always decided to
Ah.
put like one notable's there and the other one's there, and you can't play it unless you're a witch because witches hold wands, obviously. Thanks, GG.
Yeah. I think I forget what I was gonna say. Hold on, it's coming. Ah, yes. I think that the amulet is gonna be easily one of the most powerful items in the game. If you have it anointed for your build and it bricks correctly and it scourges correctly, it's kind of unbeatable almost, isn't it? But the thing is, that item, unless someone's playing the exact same build as you with the same notables at once, it's only good for you, right? It's like a custom item.
Yeah.
You have to make it yourself. No one's going to make it for you unless you're playing a meta build, which in my opinion is quite interesting because it's not an item which can be easily transferred to others.
I agree. That's really cool. Unless you're obviously playing the meta build, and yeah, I agree. That is a very, very cool thing about that amulet for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the last two here. In my opinion, these are the ones which, they're a little bit like either not powerful. They're either gonna be powerful or they're gonna suck. I think it's either one or the other, broken or trash. Let's start with the gloves. So they have some stats on them, but the main thing here is that it says enemies killed by anyone count as being killed by you, and it has that if they're nearby in brackets there. What do you guys think of these gloves? Obviously, there's a lot of potential, but is it actually going to be realized?
I think these were way, way more niche, right? These are so niche. These are things that are like, it's so specific. But I mean, the first thing I thought when I looked at them is I started thinking, like, what are the implications of me putting these on a AG, for example? Because how does killed by you work for an AG, for example, right? Like, I don't quite know mechanically how that works, but the first thing I thought when I saw the gloves is, what if I make an AG and then I give him an explode chest and I give him these gloves? Is he gonna explode for me? like things like that, which already makes the unique extremely interesting, right? It makes it so interesting. But it also
give him an explode weapon as well, right? You can get like 70% explode.
It could be also so Pepega, right?
Yeah.
As I said before, like uniques like these that enable interactions between other stuff are great. I think they should add as many as possible in the game.
But the obvious thing would be minor, like explosions minor would be a thing now. I suppose.
Yeah, totems can also explode now.
Yeah, true.
And then obviously there is the really out there stuff, like Magic Find. You can potentially use this, like if you've got the gloves on and you've got a full set of Magic Find on, and someone's killing monsters near you, your Magic Find should in theory apply instead of theirs. Yeah. I don't know how exactly it'll work. But potentially you could even double dip on the Magic Find. I don't know, because it's being killed by both them and you. Maybe I don't know exactly how that'll work or who it'll be using. But yeah, I think these gloves are either going to be absolutely earth-shatteringly broken, like doubling your Magic Find. Come on, that's insane. Or they're going to be probably in the dark for many leagues until someone gets released, which breaks them.
Yeah.
And the last one here is pretty much like it's like a pure defensive item from what I can tell. And that is, I think it's called Stasis Prison. The chest piece from Uber Legion, which basically says you recuperate 100% of the damage you take, and debuffs expire on you 100% faster, while also giving you temporal shift for free, which is the new gimmick spell, which lets you wind back time to recuperate mana, life, and energy shield. What do you guys reckon of this item? I think it's the one the least people are talking about.
I think it might have some really good interactions, but I can't think of any way to use it personally. Maybe someone comes up with a 5-eyed idea.
I mean, it's crazy, right? Because you could technically be like immortal with this, or like you could fully sustain RF, or something
not
like
RF.
that.
It's not a hit. It needs to be a hit.
Oh yeah, because I remember. Yeah, recoup has to be a hit. Yeah, that's true.
Maybe self-damaging builds that damage take with the helmet that makes the helmet that makes you take damage. I don't remember the name. Or the chest, the rat's cage that converts the damage that you take.
It is a chest. You can't use a chest with a chest.
Oh, true. Never mind.
Double chest.
Double chest,
I think.
man.
I think. Okay, so this item, the chest piece, is an incredibly powerful slot. Obviously, it's like what your 6-link is. It's like where plus gems go. So whatever the mechanic is that abuses this basically needs to be insane for it to have any chance at actually being a good build on softcore, at least. But I think it is possible because, as you said, Tuna, I mean, theoretically, you're immune because you recuperate all the damage you take, just 100%. All you have to do is not get one shot. Just don't get one shot.
Build a good enough defense.
I don't know how. Pardon?
Just build a good enough defense to not take those one hits, and then you just recoup over 4 seconds. You're good to go.
And you were saying recovery rate actually makes this faster. Is that actually true?
We need to actually do some research because I thought it was true, but some people then said it wasn't. And you know how it is with like PoE, right? Someone's like, wait, no, it's not. And that's the first thing that came to mind for me is that if you get increased recovery rate, then I mean, you're rolling. You're gonna get like so much of that life back. So, and the first interaction that came to mind for me is like, imagine something like this with. I know this skill is not great, but Bone Shatter, for example.
Bone Shatter, yeah. It's a pretty good one. But yeah, I think out of all of the uniques, if you had to pick one, which one are you the most excited about, and why is it the shield, Tuna?
I mean, for me, the shield is gonna be only for niche scenarios, but the item that's gonna be something that I'm gonna want, because there's some uniques that you buy for yourself. Obviously Headhunter that you keep and you use all league, and it's gonna be very transferable from build to build. So obviously the Mage Blood is the unique that probably most people will want to chase. And then later on, most likely going to be going for the shield, and the shield is going to be sort of what I'm going to be trying to make cool builds with and whatnot. But I also really like the amulet, the Anoint amulet, and I really like the Breach amulet. So you can't fault them this time around. It's every unique is really good, and I'm looking forward to it all. I feel like it's so hard to find anything bad to say about any of these uniques. So in terms of like giving sort of criticism, maybe just put at least crafted life on the uniques. There's something that I've seen people saying. So that would be nice.
Downsides.
Actually true.
I mean, if the bell had life on it, it's like, why? It doesn't need the life.
Yeah,
honestly, I'd use it even if it didn't have the resist on it. For me, it's the belt. The belt is just insane. It's like you can make the most defensive character ever with the belt. It's ridiculous how good it is, and the quality of life. Like, I like zoom in. It's a zoomer belt, and you don't have to invest insane amounts into your map or put beyond on every map to get that amount of zoom, which is super cool in my opinion. What about you, Elesshar? Which item?
Definitely the belt. It's too good. It's too good.
It's too good. It's way too good. Yeah. It's pretty damn strong.
The belt's amazing, yeah.
Which one are the other one? The amulet for annoyance, the amulet that gives you one link, the chest. I don't know. I don't really like the chest too much. The belt is too good. Yeah, the belt is definitely the belt.
It has to be the belt.
Yeah. All right. So, of course, one of the big bombshells with the reveal was that they dropped the patch notes as well. Now, I don't know. I just felt so overwhelmed when everything came out. I can barely remember the patch notes. But obviously, there was a ton of stuff that got changed. All I know is that the build I was planning on playing, Corrupting Fever, didn't get hit. Pretty much everything else is a blur. What do you guys think of the patch notes?
I'll be honest. Okay, sorry. This is a small change of subject, but just to show chat, since everyone's spamming it, yes, Jason is being released today. We might be getting the passive skill tree, so rejoice. Just praise Kaduku. There you go. Yeah, I thought I'd have to mention it since everyone is spamming it. There we go. But I personally wouldn't have minded if the patch notes came a little bit later because of how much there was to absorb already. But obviously that's sort of like maybe selfish because also I'm from EU, so I wasn't really willing to go over the patch notes at 1 a.m. post announcement. There was already so much to talk about and so much to think about that the patch notes on top of that was maybe like, okay. But at the same time, it's better to get all the information ahead of time, and I'm really thankful for that. And I really like how they've been doing it this time around. So I do like that a lot. But what are your thoughts on it, Grim already?
I thought it was great. I liked everything about the patch.
What actually was on the patch notes? I can't even remember. It's like obviously all the manifestos. We got the actual solid info on that. Was there anything like strikingly new that was on the patch notes? I think obviously we saw massive nerfs to Forbidden Right and Spectral Shield Throw. I mean, we were all expecting that. Let's be real. I don't think anything else really got hit pretty that hard. I guess Gladiator kind of like, but not really. I mean, I'm still gonna play Gladiator. I guess like Trickster kind of was a bit underwhelming, but other than that, I don't really think there was any nerfs on the patch notes. Really, was there?
No, there weren't really many nerfs. They just like changed. I like when they change stuff around.
You guys forgot Ore Stack.
Oh, I mean, we knew that they would nerf for us stackers and SST and Forbidden Right. That was like kind of a given. Everyone expected those, so people didn't really get mad about it. And I didn't really play any of those three builds either, so I don't really care about them as well anyway.
I mean, okay, so let's just talk about Orobots. So I think there's a bit of a misconception here. So Orobots are not dead. They're far from dead. They are going to be everywhere, if not more, because of the new Uber content and the existence of the difficulty of Scourge. There's going to be more of them than ever. So they're not going anywhere, and like, I just think people need to get used to the fact that, they were nerfed, yeah, okay, so they can't run all the auras, and the auras they can run aren't as good, and then you use stuff like the Vile Timeless Jewel, but they are still incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
You can still get around 280 aura effect, which is pretty good. You can get like 89% max res, and if you invest a lot into it, you get a good Timeless Jewel, you can get still 90% max res, and you can still run 3 purities, and you can run like 2 or 3 damage auras, and that's pretty much it. The other auras are going to be like on your carry probably, and you just do like a duo setup where the carry probably runs like Determination, Grace, or like maybe something else. And on the aura bot, if you want to go duo, if you have more than 2 people, you can run everything. Like I checked Snapow's video about like the team setup that is going to do with MP, and you can pretty much just fit everything still in the team. All of the buffs and all the auras and everything is still there. They're going to be fine. You're going to struggle a little bit on like a duo, but if you're going 3 or more, you're going to be fine.
Me and someone in my chat were like planning out a bit of a duo thing for the Wave 30 simulacrum. It's fine. I don't think it's like a big deal. We obviously still need to see the cluster, actual nodes on the clusters, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. Or a stacker, obviously, on the other hand. I mean, I've already seen some people send me some stuff. I think they're still going to exist in some form. They probably won't look the same. I mean, Tuna knows what it is. He probably thinks it's still just as trash as the other old Aura stackers.
I thought it was trash since 2 leagues ago, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think Aura stackers are still going to exist as well, but they're probably going to have to use the boots, which, I mean...
The boots, not the boots, dude.
The boots gonna suck.
I thought the boots were good, but then my mind has changed when we talked the other day.
Yeah, when I told you had a cast time.
I didn't know it had a cast time, dude.
Yeah, the boots. Yikes. But, people are probably going to still play it. They're probably still going to be pretty much immortal, and they're probably going to be AFK in Wave Simulacrum and Wave 30 Simulacrum, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them either. But yeah, I think patch notes, big win. I think it's a big win.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the question. Obviously, we don't have JSON yet. We don't have the skill tree. I'm sure that'll be coming soon.
If chat praises.
Yeah, if you praise Kaduki. What are the builds going to be, lads? Not what build your league starting with, but what are some of the ideas you've got kind of cooking up there? What would you love to play in 3.16? Considering Scourge, the lead mechanic and all that stuff like that. Go ahead, Elesshar.
Okay, if I want to do like a fast mapper, right, that just does like maps really fast and doesn't care about bossing or anything, I'm gonna go with 2 obliterations. Hear me out, and then you go elementalist with the shock node and the ignite node, and you go with your hits. Those 2 nodes give you your hits always shock, and your hits always ignite. All of your damage can shock, and all of your damage can ignite. So that means you just run a ref, like you scale fire damage over time multiplier, which is the same as ignite. You just scale like fire damage and fire damage over time multiplier, which are global mods and AoE, and you just walk into a pack. One mob explodes, 25% of the damage causes an ignite, right? And then you use the ring that proliferates, ignites, and shocks. The mobs near it get shocked, right? And ignited, and is proliferated. And it's based on the damage on the obliteration, even though it's chaos damage. So it's a big hit. It's like 25% of the mob's life as ignite. And it just chain reacts and kills everything.
That does sound
It's
pretty
insane.
It sounds pretty cool.
good.
Badass.
And the budget is like 1 bit extra spite and 2 obliteration, and you're done.
I can't
And you
wait to
just
see
get
it,
fire
Elesshar.
damage and fire damage over time multiplier.
Gonna be blowing it up. What about you, Tuna?
I just want a build that explodes everything, dude.
I think the really fun stuff is gonna be a little bit like later on for me in the league, but
What are you thinking? What are you thinking about there with the fun stuff?
the shield really just made me think about like potentially making some sort of auto bomber stuff. Also potentially just freeing up a chest slot, or even thinking about whether I can get enough damage on a wander to be able to actually not have to use the gloves as the as my extra links there, because glove links are not that good. I mean, there's so many options now also with Supreme Ego being close to Ranger, and the mastery is also opening up where like access to conversion, spell conversion, potentially all of that stuff. And we haven't seen any of the masteries yet, so we just need to see the passive tree. We need to see the masteries. We need to see what's going on there, because potentially there's so much stuff that we're missing right now, and planning is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But in terms of league start, even
then,
then I don't know what I'm playing. It's between ignites or corrupting fever.
I'm about to ask you that in a second here, Tina. But for me, it's Replica Dreamfella. Not as a league starter, but it's pretty interesting to me. You know, getting getting up to 2 million armor, running around, being pretty much invincible to physical damage. Sounds pretty good in Scourge. You play Lightning Strike. It sounds pretty strong with the belt, the flasks all multiply together. I know it's gonna be tough, but I think it could work if you figure it out enough.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited to try that out.
Something else I want to try to use is a Pathfinder scaling like a lot of flask effect and stuff like that using the belt, right? And on the 5th slot, you can put like what is the name of the flask that gives you Val Souls? I forgot.
Soul Ripper.
You use Soul Ripper because on the first 4 flasks, you're not actually using any flash charges. So all of your charges generated will funnel in the 5th one, and you can automate it. So you can get infinite Val Souls, and you can probably like play a Val skill, not sacrificing the other 4 flask slots, right?
Can't do it anymore because of
didn't fill.
Sorry, you can't
work?
do Vol skills anymore because no weapons, no bloodstain mod anymore.
True, actually, true.
You know what, actually, Tina? I think that they know that they took that out, right? I think they might put that on Scourge.
No. They don't like Val skills. They don't want us to play them. It's completely like we know they don't want us to play them, because also I think what they want to do is they want to create more fun and meaningful ways to get flask effect, right? So they want to add flask effect, but they know that every time they add it, some crazy guy is gonna release an automatic instilling orb, Soul Ripper, Val Stormcall build with their new ring, right? I just love Val skills, and I'm always gonna try to find a way to do it. But I think they don't want Val skills to be a thing. It's supposed to be, as they said last patch, it's supposed to be that one button that you press that's like, wow, you know, like you're bad chesting when you press it, and they don't want you to they don't want you to have it as your main build.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, I think it's fair. So it sounds like, unlike 3.15, there's some ideas already cooking with the boys, which is exciting. I like it. Some new stuff that's uncharted territory with the new items or the new power or the buffs, which is good. I think that's definitely exciting. All right, so as part of the new patch, we also got the new reworked Atlas, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know, what are some of the ideas you guys have for your league start money making strategies with the new Atlas? Because we know pretty much everything on it. What are you guys going to be starting out with to kind of make your mark on Scourge and get a bit of that coin going?
I think that early league, doing essences and harvest is going to be really, really good. And whenever you have a good enough build that you can do breach, I think breach is going to be huge. I think I'll go like first into harvest, craft a little bit of my gear with essences and harvest, and then transition into farming breach. And then I'll probably go into Nemesis 3. And I'll also keep one zone where I just want to do like my missions, like betrayal. I'll just get watchstones for like betrayal members, get like additional members helping them when the intervention stuff. So I can actually like do isling and isling my items. And we have 4 zones, right? So we can like get good watchstones on all 4 zones and just cycle them and do 4 different strategies.
How does Scourge fit into that, though, Elesshar? So you said you're going to do some harvest, some crafting, and all stuff like that. Are you gonna touch Scourge at all?
I mean, you just do it passively as you play the game, right? It's in every map, and you're gonna min-max it when you do like your final juice, like Nemesis 3. In Nemesis 3 is gonna be huge because they drop so much stuff. But before then, you don't really get on a lot of interactions with it unless you put Delhi and beyond.
We don't really know yet.
It's just an Alcan-Go map, right?
We have no idea how to min-max the mechanic, and that's probably
we don't know. True.
We're gonna have to wait for Grimro to do the spreadsheeting and stuff as always. Softcore messiah. But yeah, I mean, essentially, I think that's the best part about the league for me. It's not knowing what is good, and yeah, sure, so I guess like segues into what I'll be doing, which is also very similar to what Ellie's doing. But I think something that I'll consciously try to figure out with Grim is how good the mechanic is and how we can min-max it in both Alcan-Go scenarios and juicing scenarios, right? Which is what we're really interested in. Like, can I actually just be like a normal person throwing in a map and then getting worth out of it? And how much worth can I get out of that? Or also, can I take it to the other extreme, which is how much can I juice this mechanic? So I think I really like both aspects to grinding in Path of Exile, because there's times where I just want to throw a map in and kill stuff and not think about things. Maybe throw like something on the device, like whatever, like Beyond, or whatever floats your boat. And I want to see like what's the profitability in that, and how can I min-max it? Maybe there's some watchstones that I can use that are good in a scenario where I'm not actually juicing the map. And then what's the opposite side, right? So how much can we juice it? So yeah.
The thing is, you're not gonna be juicing the league mechanic early. I was talking about this like more early game. I'm gonna do like harvest and essences early, and then it's still gonna be early when I do breaches. It's not like gonna be a end game strategy. Breaches usually devalue pretty fast.
Yeah, they do.
Especially if it's gonna be like a meta thing.
But there's also gonna be like a lot of people wanting to run breach road, not roads. Sorry, the breach lords for the new breaches, right? Because that's how you get the new breach stones, is by doing the invitation.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm not going to do Essence or Harvest. I hate that shit. I don't like Harvest. It's good.
They buffed Harvest though. Like all of the reforges now they're not alchemy. Chaos, right? They just work on any item.
Yep. It's way stronger. Yeah, 100%. I just don't like buying the bases. It's just like Dark
Yeah,
Weave.
true.
But I think for me, I'm just going to go straight to Breach, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous how good it is. I won't get too much into the minutia, but I think the reason it's so good is because they buff the Breach stones, right? So the days of 10C, tool stones, those were over. If you can do one tool and you get 10C in currency because the mobs drop currency items now because of the mod on there. I think that breach stones are going to hold a lot more equity throughout the league, and I think obviously early the uniques are worth something as well. So I think farming them up, specifically Chayula for the feed and all sorts of stuff like that, is going to be worth a lot. So I'm gonna hang out there for a while. And as Tuna said, the whole time I'm doing Breach, I'm just going to be just pumping the lead mechanic, trying to figure out how I can make it good and really understand that. Because I think it has insane potential. And Scourge Maps early are going to be good, I think.
I think
Go
you
ahead,
talked
Tuna.
about this with Bex, right? How does Breach work with the mechanic, Grim?
So I asked Bex 4 questions, and one of which was how Breach, Legion, and Harbinger and all sorts of stuff like that work with Scourge. So you can pop breaches in and out of the Scourge dimension just fine. You like ideally would want to pop them in the real world because then you get the bar and you get to go in more. So you basically want to pop your breach when you've got no juice. But she said you can't pop legions and stuff like that in the Scourge dimension.
Right.
And you basically like snap back to your legion after you've been in the Scourge world. So there's going to be some figuring out to do, and we're going to have to put our minds towards it, Tuna.
Yep, I'm hyped.
So I guess like the final piece here of the puzzle, which we missed a little bit, is Delve. So obviously Delve got a massive overhaul, and I think that Tuna's the best one to talk about this one. So why don't you lead us off, Tuna?
So basically, this is something that I've been sort of, and a lot of people have been tagging me with like poor Tuna, Sag, or whatever, but this is something that I've sort of been advocating for now the longest time. You guys know how much I love Delve and how much I've been delving in the past. I probably have like 4,000 hours just in the Delve mine, so that's something that I'm really passionate about. And, having gone from the immune meta to the tank meta to the ZHP meta, this meta has been the most stale thing, I think, in the game, and it's the thing that's been persisting for the longest time since I've started playing the game. Like, builds have come and gone, things have come and gone, whatever. ZHP has been there since basically post-Synthesis League, right? So I am incredibly happy that they're looking to tackle that. I'm not exactly sure whether they're going to be able to completely nerf it. There's some things that they did not specifically say in the English patch notes, but they did talk about how they're changing a lot of the mechanics of the mobs in Delve. So if you guys don't know, what they're doing is they're adding spiders that flicker strike onto you, and they're also adding the range from which monsters can attack you from the darkness from 20 units to 50 units, which is half the screen. So that means that it's going to be a lot harder for you to actually be a ZHP Andy. There's also going to be spiders that drop from the roof, and when you kill them, they do sparks. So essentially, it's going to be, I don't know if maybe you're experienced with ZHP, but every zone is going to feel like Nemesis except worse. So if you played ZHP enough, you know that that's horrible. So what I'm really hoping,
this wasn't in the patch notes though, Tuna.
This wasn't in the patch notes. This was in the German patch notes. In our patch notes, you know what they wrote? They wrote changing the behavior of many of the Delve monsters.
What?
Yeah. So in our patch notes, they literally just said changing the behavior, blah 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 blah, whatever. But in the German and Russian patch notes, they said all of these things, and apparently it got added back in today. So yeah, that's
so ZHP is gone.
We don't know. Yeah, we're gonna have to see how this is gonna work in practice.
I mean,
you're gonna death rush a lot more if you want to do ZHP. Definitely.
I mean, trust me, man. I'm the one that would love for ZHP to be gone more than all of us put together. So, but at the same time, I know how persistent people are, and if actually it ends up being that ZHP is still the best way to push, then that's going to be the way to push, right?
They obviously are cognizant of the fact that it should be removed. So, obviously if they don't achieve it this time, they could potentially do it next time. Like, I think, just based on what you said there, the sparks on death from the spiders, that's nightmare fuel. How, like, you have to basically, like, stand behind like you guys do it already with the pathing, how you stand behind those big crystal walls and you use the brands over the top. So I guess that kind of counters that. But the Flicker Strike, I suppose you can kill them all with Blast Freeze if you do it quick enough. Actually, maybe I see why you're not fully sold on the fact that it's gone.
Yeah, but I'm never sold on the fact. I'm always cynical about everything, right? When it comes to this sort of stuff, it's just I've always seen if there's a problem, players will find the way to get past that problem. PoE players are smart, and a lot of the times maybe motivated by things that are not just fun, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to Delve, we'll have to see. But aside from that, the changes to Delve, even if you're not interested in going ZHP full, like insane Delver Andy or whatever, the changes are good because 1.5k depth is apparently going to be the equivalent of 6k in both difficulty and rewards. So that means that it's going to take so much less time to get to the good stuff for normal people that I think more people are going to start realizing why a lot of people delve and how good it is and how profitable it is. And potentially it's going to bring a lot more resonators into the market. So it's going to be good for crafters because of the way that Azerite scales. I hope that they did it right. I hope that the Azerite now scales also with how the rewards scaled. So, yeah. We'll just have
for me changes.
Oh, go ahead.
Other changes that they did is they made the resonator be able to roll any item, which is huge because so you don't have to like split them in alchemical and
yes. They're all chaotic.
And also they removed a lot of resonator sources from the rest of the game, so it makes Delve and breaking walls actually valuable now.
Fossil, not resonator.
Not resonators.
Resonator only came from Delve anyway.
No. You still. I mean, I think maybe 4 sockets. Maybe I'm wrong.
4 sockets can come from other places.
Oh yeah, true. It was fossils. Yeah.
It was the fossils. Yeah.
So it's actually more valuable now. There's like more value to delving that there wasn't before, even a lower depth. So like the average player is gonna be way more incentivized to actually delve than it was before. I think it's gonna be like good to just do delve.
Let me pick your brain a little bit, guys, on the new fossil types as well, because they changed. I don't exactly remember, but basically there's a new one for attributes. I can't remember what the other one was. What was that one?
Critical strikes.
And crit.
It's insane.
Isn't that a pretty big deal?
That is a huge.
There's 2 new fossils.
Yeah.
Oh, that is insane.
Crit.
The attribute and crit one are actually insane.
Attributes and critical strikes.
There is so many good influence mods that have crit and attribute tag. Next league is going to be crafting heaven. It's going to be insane. Those fossils are crazy if they exist.
Also, I know
actually you
Path of Exile players love gambling, right? There's this fossil that's called Tangled that people never used to use, which comes from that's a special node in Delve, right? So the Tangled fossil drops from the fungal caverns, basically like rare fossil node. And essentially what it used to do is it used to give you a random modifier from any of the special fossils, right? So completely useless. But what happens now is that if you socket it into a resonator, and what I assume it does and how they wrote it, because it was kind of like weird how they wrote it, but when this resonator locks, you know when you hover your mouse over it and it says like, we'll give you more of these mods, more of those mods, whatever?
Yeah.
So what it does is, imagine you have like Tangled plus Frigid. So you're going to have more cold. And what the Tangled can do is it has a chance to also roll more cold mods. So what could happen is that you get times 20 more cold mods.
Rather than it's times 100.
Yeah, or like something like that, right? Like I'd probably be multiplicatively, right? Like
that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It could give you any random additional, right? Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So it could choose any of the fossils, and it could give you that additional chance to roll the mods of that fossil.
Yeah, that's actually insane, though.
So that's what the new.
But you can only see that. You can only see it from what I understand after you fully socket the resonator. Correct?
As soon as you fully socketed the resonator, yeah. So that's why it's a gamble.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think overall, I think like from my perspective as like a Delve noob, but I mean in Delve League, I was on the ladder for a little bit. Yay me! I still hold on to that. But
you did well.
I did okay.
Yeah.
But for me, I had no real interest in going deep. But the changes to the actual biomes themselves were pretty damn interesting. So obviously, there's like stuff like bosses drop 20 fossils almost. That's like crazy. And now you're telling me that they're going to be more expensive, and there's new ones which are even better. That's pretty enticing. The bosses are more common, and there's other new interesting modifiers. Of course, like there's like more resonators from the caches as a mod, and there's like even one which reduces the amount of sulfite you're using for that zone. So I think delve in general, it just seems a lot more appealing, even as someone who doesn't really like to deep delve.
Yeah.
And the new fractured items, you can drop items that have the fractured mod that is delve specific. For example, +1 Spectre and stuff like that, or the curse on rings. And also another crazy thing is, if we have more bosses, the precursor emblem rings are going to be more common. And you know how strong +1 frenzy and +1 power charge rings are.
Yeah.
And that's going to be crazy.
Yeah, having more access to bosses is great.
You're going to put them in the furnace, dude? Your +1 multi for cresses?
You know I'm going to be doing that. If I get my hands on it, that is. But yeah, I think Delve has some of the best bosses they've ever designed, and it's a shame that people don't get to experience them. I'm very much looking forward to it. I just I want to like maybe caution GGG, since they said they're decreasing damage and increasing life, but from just the spoiler that they showed, like there's nobody that's completing that all, you know. Crit, pen, Physis extra with like 1k scaling, like I mean that's okay if you're like at the deepest of depths, but
yeah, I mean the new monsters only exist in the actual mines. They don't exist in the bosses, and you can do all without ever getting hit, right? I've seen like
I mean obviously yeah, but the whole point is the reason why ZHP exists is because of damage scaling, which is what I was trying to say is because you die in one shot no matter what. That's the reason why, Jets Rabbit was one day like, or like Rue were like one day like, why am I even building a defense? I'm just gonna go no defense and kill everything before it touches me.
You can become crit immune. That is a thing. 100% reduced damage from crits. I think they said it's part of it's on the tree. You can get 60% from a determination Watcher's Eye. It's doable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did look pretty gnarly. You're right.
But it was less about the mods and more about like, am I gonna be getting hit for like 100 times what a T16 monster hits for? Like,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Definitely, I understand. Yeah, it's definitely pretty brutal. Okay, well, I mean, okay, so let's round out a little bit here, because there's just so much in this patch, and like actually like covering all our bases here is just like so insane. So what I want to do here is let's cover what you're planning on league starting, like what idea you have of league starting, because I think that's what a lot of people are thinking now. Like, you know, there's just so much that has changed. There's like so many like opportunities. What do we even play? Like maybe just throw in a few also which you think might be good, which you might not necessarily be playing, but you know you think you're going to be good. I'll start out. So I'm starting Corrupting Fever, and I'm probably going to be playing Kinetic Blast for a good amount of time before I go Tornado Shot. And the one which I'll throw out, which I think is probably going to be pretty good, is Exsanguinate Seismic Trapper. As a pretty reliable starter as well if you're not into Corrupting Fever.
Yeah. For me...
you go.
Sorry. For me, I'm also I'm looking between three things. So, I'm not sure how like tryhard I want to go this league, but essentially, I'm also looking at Corrupting Fever. It's a lot of fun to play, and the Explode is really fun. As you said, I think as a streamer, the thing that you probably recommend to most people is going to be Exsanguinate, Trapper, Seismic Traps, because it didn't get nerfed. It's really strong. You can build decent defense on it, although you're going to be quite squishy. But yeah, good luck buying your Cold Iron points. Another thing I obviously recommend, as always, and it's a meme on the channel as well, it's Toxic Rain. It's never bad. I hate Toxic Rain now because I've been league starting it every league start for a year over. I have like a bunch of guides on it and whatever. And so yeah, you could play Toxic Rain. On softcore, I suggest you play on a Pathfinder. Or if you really, really want to be tanky, you could obviously play Lighties. A lot of people have been coming to chat being like, yo, have you seen Lighties TR? Lighties TR, Doc Arrive? Have you seen it? And yes, I've seen it. It's really good. Rue also made a Soul Thirst variant of that too, if you want to, be zoom in maps. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, so far, Corrupting Fever, Toxic Rain, Trapper, with Seismic Trap. I think Rue also made like a really nice Volatile Detonate Dead build. Things to look out for could be Poison Concoction, could be really good, or it could be absolutely terrible, depending on how the scaling works with life recovery on flasks. And something that we have no idea about that could be absolutely broken is Energy Blade. I mean, it could be absolutely broken, honestly. So those are just things to keep an eye out on. Aside for that, maybe check out Rutu. He's a good build creator. Just yeah.
I'll go next.
Remind him about his staff, maybe.
Okay. To give a bit of context, what I consider like a successful league starter is if it can do like the whole Atlas really fast on like a budget, and maybe can do some invitations. Even if it can do invitations and like complete my whole Atlas passive points, as long as it can do like all the Watchstones and everything else is fine. And basically, I'm probably gonna go something along the lines of Inquisitor, and I'm gonna go with the cold damage, probably minor, because there's a really strong interaction with Marilyn's Fallacy and Brittle. They didn't nerf Brittle, and you can seize so much damage from just 2 items. The Scuffed Helmet that gives you Brittle Sense, or like if you have enough currency, you can buy the small cluster. And you can invest so much into life that makes your build like 7k life, and then you can invest a lot into just get 100% crit from Brittle and get like 250 multi from the amulet. Other things I was thinking about is Elementalist Ignite with Armageddon brand, and then use the new skill that gives you the single target skill. I don't remember the name. It's like Flame Burst?
Flame Surge.
Flame Surge, yeah, that one. I don't know how it's gonna work because we haven't played the build yet, so I don't really know.
I actually forgot about that. That's a good one too.
Something else I was considering playing was maybe a Deadeye or probably Deadeye Miner with either as a Wonder or a Bow character, or as Eye of Winter, because it scales the mechanic pretty well. And you have Tailwind, you have Marks. It gives you a pretty good damage. It's going to be a little squishy, but it's going to be like really fast mapping.
A little squishy. Oh, man.
You can still get like 4.5k life. It's enough to push the whole Atlas. I don't mind if it's squishy.
Yeah, I suppose.
But yeah, definitely like the safest 2 builds that I was considering was Inquisitor, Miner, or it can get really good EHP because of you can also sustain RF on Inquisitor, and you can potentially go low life. New interactions that you can use as well is with the ring that gives you reduced effect of curses on you. It's a mod now, right?
Yeah.
You can get it on rings, and you can get it on tree as well, and you can use the low life belt while being on effect, and you get so much damage for free. And you can do so much damage, you can see so much damage out of Inquisitor, because now Brittle scales like this. It gives you flat to your spell, right? And you get like a lot of crit chance from just being an Inquisitor and getting the node. It gives you a lot of 1% crit chance for every int or strength, which is the lowest. So you get like 250 minimum crit chance for free for being Inquisitor, right? And then the Brittle gives you flat, and it gets multiplied by your crit chance that you don't need to invest in because you get it for free. And you don't need to invest into penetration. I think it's like perfect for league starting.
Also, you're talking about Inquis and Reduce Curse, and now Consecrated Ground gives you a shitload of Reduced Curse curse effect, I think. I don't remember the wording on it.
50% Reduced Curse effect.
Yeah. So in terms of maps, some of them like have higher effectiveness, but when it comes to your curse with vulnerability on your belt, I'm pretty sure that's just baseline. If you get a 100% reduction, that means you're unaffected by it, right?
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
As long as it's not bugged and doesn't scale with Awakener bonus if you enter a map. I don't think it's like, yeah. Or maybe it's scaled by your own curse effect, potentially.
I'm not sure, but yeah, on Elementalist, either like Ignite with Armageddon brand and the new single target skill for ignites, or Righteous Fire, just killing global damage over time multiplier, fire damage, and AoE, and going for like exploded chains if I want to just do a fast mapper. I think it's gonna be like all these builds are gonna be like good enough to just push the Atlas, and depending on the build that I play, I'll just adjust and just farm another strategy. If I can't really do bosses, I'll just farm maps and just focus more on just farming maps. I just need the build to be like viable and do enough currency so that can transition into something really strong next. Like League started don't need to be perfect. They just need to get the job done.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
Also farming
Alright.
bosses early. How do you guys think? How do you guys feel about that? I think it's
Bosses.
I think it's scuffed, right? Because unless you're like Pyro, right, which gets there on like day one, he's Uber Elder juicing and he's selling the quivers for like 6x to I don't know who. Like who's buying the quiver for 6x on day one? But anyways,
I know who.
They are buying them, but you have to consider that Pyro has like one or two of the best traders in the game.
Yeah.
The guy that makes like most of the mirror tier items, the guy that plays with Vast, is like trading for Pyro.
Right, but
so even if he gets first bosses, it's like he's really good boss killer, but he has also a really good trader, right? And they're like tryharding.
And you're competing against those people. So essentially, I think boss killing as a strategy on League Start is becoming more and more, maybe less and less is the right word. Like let's say viable for your average Joes. I suppose. Doing Cirrus is always going to be good because Cirrus is not something that's locked behind trading, right? Because boss killers don't have access to Cirrus as much as mappers, right? Because you have to run maps to get Cirrus. But when it comes to Cirrus, that's why things from Cirrus retain their value. But when it comes to Uber Siri, Uber Elder, things like that, like if you're aiming to do those, if you're not one of the first people doing that, it's always going to be scuffed. It's going to be so scuffed. And trust me, I was boss killing for the longest time. You don't want to be in that space. If you're not there within the first 2 days, you just hemorrhage, you're losing. You're not losing, you're just not making much. And essentially, the opportunity cost between farming Atlas and doing that and giving up your entire league start for playing a minor. Oh boy. You're in for a treat.
At least for me, boss killing, obviously it's been okay. Like I've never been like, oh man, I'm broke because I'm a boss killer. Like I've been able to get even solo. Like last week I was a boss killer. I was able to make enough money for the headhunter pretty easily. Obviously I played a lot of hours, but it's doable.
You also played like a really strong build, and it was relatively cheap, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Like the stuff was like 5x, and you didn't need a 6 link.
Yeah.
Most builds don't get that amount of damage on the budget.
It's true. I mean, yeah, it was a very good build at the time. I think overall, though, that most people like kind of discount the fact that the economy in Path of Exile doesn't really function for the first few days. Like, for example, there's not people buying scarabs, right? Like, not really. So, like, a lot of the strategies are kind of like out the window. So you have to be pretty specific with what you're doing. So mostly the things that people want to buy are stuff that gets their build going. So that's uniques, which is why boss killing is so good. And those uniques don't exist, so you can fill that niche. And rares, as well as stuff that creates rares. So you heard Elesshar and Tuna very intelligently say they're going to go for Essence and Harvest, and that's because they can feed that side of the equation, the rares. So the cluster jewels, the rings, probably some other stuff as well. But I think that there is obviously some other strategies like Heist, which does quite well. There is some stuff that people need from Heist, and overall, I think that's just better options than bossing. And if there's too many people bossing, everyone just undercuts each other, and the price of the materials goes way up. and you just can't win because you're all just fighting each other for like a tiny sliver of profits that's left because you all undercut each other, which is what it very quickly became lastly when I was playing it. So I'm absolutely not going to touch it. And of course, Scourge isn't in bosses either, and you're just missing out on all
you're
of
missing
that.
out on like the amazingness of the new league. True. And you're forced into that build, right? You're forced into giving up everything for it, which
you have to basically play a glass cannon, which isn't
like for me when I think about my league stars, I think, how long am I in maps? How long am I in a boss? Like as a non-boss killer, I'm in maps 99.9% of the time, right? And I'm in bosses maybe 1% of the time. Maybe when I get a conquer where Cirrus procs. Cool. Hopefully, by the way, that changes in the future and we're not forced into doing bosses for like, I don't know, lore reasons or whatever, which I hope that next league is going to be the case. But anyways, so would you rather be miserable 99% of the time or 1% of the time? If it comes to me, like I would rather take like 10 minutes on a boss, but do my maps 10 times faster, if that makes sense. And not use 6 portals.
The thing is, you need a baseline damage to be able to like clear, like, for example,
obviously
if you have a breach, you need enough damage to like be able to clear it. You need enough damage to be able to do June missions. Like a lot of those mobs have pretty high HP. Also, the map boss has pretty high HP, right? Compared to like
obviously,
normal mobs.
I'm not saying go like
glacial
if you
hammer.
Have enough
damage. If you have enough damage to like do the map efficiently, you should have close to enough damage to actually not suffer like while you're doing a boss. It's gonna take you a bit longer, but you don't stay like an hour in a boss, like 5 minutes in a boss, right?
But it's gonna be like, as Chad likes to say, Quinn build, lol W, Pepe point.
Yeah,
but you need to look at like the whole efficiency, like I don't know.
Yeah,
overall.
I think okay. So the thing that made me not want to roll a bossa is that last league on like day 3, I was buying a set of Guardian maps for like as much as I was making off of my double Guardian fragments on average. So I was like just going even, right? And the only money I'd get back is from the invitations. And it's like, okay, who's getting that money? I'm buying those Guardian maps off of mappers who are creating those Guardian maps for free. So it's like, the more like you should basically be at the start of the chain if you can possibly do it, because the more expensive the uniques and the bosses are, the more the bosses will have to pay for it, and the more competition there is, the more they'll be paying as well. You can't literally have any competition as a mapper. All that's going to happen is there's just too many maps, and the supply will go way too high up, and the price will come down. But at the end of the day, like you're not actually losing anything. Like there's never going to be a time in which you can't make money. Which as a bosser, it's very real that you just could like play for 5 hours and lose money. You can't actually have that happen.
Yeah,
could be a dice roll. Again, unless you're there like day 1, right?
That's different, but most people are not going to get that day 1. You have to like literally play 20 hours or even 24.
Even more than that. People are hardcore in PoE. Like if there's any game that's like, there's no game that's like PoE, man. People will go with 48 hours, like. Like, like not even. Am I a boomer? Like I'm not even. I can do that shit anymore, man. No way.
I mean, I did it last week. It's pretty brutal. Like the reason why it's just so brutal is like you know that if you sleep, you're gonna wake up and everything's half the price.
Scuffed, yeah.
And if you have items to sell, you know that you have to sell them before you go to sleep. It sucks. So so I'm not doing it again. Not doing that to myself. But also Headhunter isn't the main thing I'm going for anymore. It's Mage Blood, so maybe that'll be cheaper. Please be cheaper.
Don't you want to farm 5 ways though? Oh, you need Mage Blood for your build, true?
Nah, that actually leads me into my final question for you guys. Okay, out of everything, you can't say Scourge. Out of all of the new stuff they've changed and added in the end game, after you've gotten your footing, what's the one you're gonna go for? Let's start with you, Tuna, because I think you already know what you're gonna say.
If the changes are as I want them to be, aka actual competition, back to, the boys competing against each other for ranks, Delve, obviously. If it's gonna be non-immune builds, non-ZHP builds, I'm in.
That's good.
You
What
said
about-
what,
what
what
are
are we
you-
going for? Like the content or like the belt?
The content.
Oh, the content, okay.
You can. I'll let you off the hook because I already know what you want to say. Like you can include Scourge Maps in yours because I think I know what you're gonna want to do as your first thing.
Me?
Hmm.
I'm just gonna do Nemesis 3, dude.
Yeah,
If
Nemesis
it-
3,
if it's-
one Deli Orb or what?
Yeah, one Delhi, and I'm just gonna hard roll Nemesis on the maps, right? Get beyond the map device, and just get percent beyond Watchstones. And on the sextant, I just get additional mobs, corrupted items if I can, so I can drop a bunch of 6 links. It's the same as last league. I don't, as long as the Nemesis 3 sextant exists, it's too much cost efficient. It's so good. And also, you do this trick where you only run 3 unique, 3 rolled Watchstones, and you run 1 unique. So whenever you drop sextants, you just sextant the 4th Watchstone, and whenever you get something good, you just sell it, and you make like 4x profit. For example, last league, every a bunch of sextants, I would just get a harvest. I just sell it to the people running harvest, and I just make 4 extra exalts on top. It's just so good. I don't know.
It's pretty interesting, yeah. And then you got Scourge on top of that potentially, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, and you also get Scourge.
For me, I'm gonna do the Uber simulacrums. I think that it's insane, personally. You get so many scarabs, you get so many uniques, so I think it's gonna be pretty insane. That's the first thing I'm gonna tackle, obviously, which isn't Scourge related.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's just so much to do. It's
So
gonna be an
much.
absolute madhouse. I mean, there's just so much that you can actually go for, and there's so many different things as well. There's so many different reasons to make different characters. Like already, all 3 of us min-maxers have a different idea of what we want to do as the first thing. So that's pretty exciting because it doesn't mean there's just one thing which is the best, which I think is really good.
Would they
I'm
even
also
think about
interested in
this?
delving though. It looks
It'll
cool.
be really good, yeah. I think if they get it right, it'll be good. But I wanted to mention, think about this. The league is so good, and there's so much endgame content, and content that's potentially inaccessible to maybe hardcore players, that Steel Mage is coming to play softcore.
What? No.
He's playing softcore SSF. So we can
What?
finally go, stay in hardcore.
Oh man, I didn't think he was. That's crazy. He's playing soft core.
That's what I've
Wow.
heard. Dude, everyone's saying, like, have you heard? Steel Mage is coming to play softcore. I was like, wait, what?
I mean, it makes sense because yeah, like
Is that true,
I mean, it
chat?
would suck.
Is that true? That's what I've heard. It's up in the air. Okay. Guys, convince him.
Okay, I mean, it does make sense because in hardcore, how are you going to be going for wave 30 simulacrum, right? I mean, you probably can do it. Like, I'm sure Uberdan will do it, but it's going to be so terrifying.
Yeah. I don't think so. People don't do 100% LE in hardcore unless they're supported. It's not like hardcore content.
I'm pretty sure Uber's simulacrum was going to be harder than 100% Delhi. By the way, they made it sound.
Okay, so Steel said hardcore
Yeah, I think
trade,
so.
but
It
Noogie and
definitely is.
Ziz said softcore SSF. I mean, shit, even just that. Like, man, there we go.
Wave 20 of Simulacrum last league was like pretty much like 80%, I think.
No,
Delhi?
it's 100. It's 100% Delhi.
Oh, okay, it's 100% Delhi. Yeah, it felt like the same difficulty, but you don't get as many headhunter buffs, so your build needs to be better to actually run Simulacrums.
I think head on is a bait in simulacrum. I think you should be using Mage Blood. All you care about
Yeah,
is
but
defense.
I'm talking about last league when I didn't have Mage Blood, right? You still run headhunter in Simulacrums. But yeah, the difficulty level felt like kind of hard compared to 100% Delhi because on 100% Delhi you get so many buffs, but in Simulacrum you don't really get them.
Yeah, I think it's either it sounds like because the way simulacrum works is it gains 5% per wave, so
Okay.
it should go to 150% Delhi. You know, if
What?
that's even possible, I don't know. But or it's going to scale some other way.
It's gonna feel
'cause
like,
obviously,
I don't know if you guys ran Greater Forces, right?
yeah.
In Greater Forces, the monsters become they feel like they're a lot tankier than 100% Delhi towards the end of a
Yeah.
tropical island. Which is kind of
I don't know
strange
why this
because
is.
100% Delhi is already 96% damage reduction.
Yeah, but it can continue to scale. It's like a formula which is infinitely scaling.
So it's like a logarithmic, I suppose.
Something like that, yeah. But basically, like it'll be like if you take 96% right and it's 1% more damage reduction, that's 25% less damage taken.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it'll probably scale.
Yeah,
but
okay, yeah.
If that's the case, I don't know why, but explosions don't seem to take the damage reduction. Have you guys noticed that in Delhi?
They do.
Hmm.
I'm sure they
I don't know.
do.
When I explode mobs in Delhi, it's just like bang, it blows up
Yeah,
the
they
whole
actually
screen.
do die really easy.
I think
it's because you have a counter buff,
do.
right? It's killing so much of your explosion.
No, even on my Gladiator, she doesn't have HH buff. Oh, I mean, actually, it does have HH buffs right
You
now.
do
I mean, even with like one buff, you know what I mean, though, Elesshar. You do know,
I know,
right?
I know. Yeah.
They like die so easy to explosions. Yeah, I think you need to like run explode. I don't know. We'll see that. That's neither here nor there. Also in Blight, it's noticeable as well. But yeah,
They don't. Delhi mobs don't get
man.
huge HP. By the way, that's a misconception. It's just damage reduction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think something like occultist would be crazy for that, right? It's a quarter of the monster's life as chaos damage.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think anything with explode is going to do really well in simulacrum. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it up. I think it's obviously we've got the tree coming out today. I imagine there's probably not going to be a BlastCast next week because we'll be playing.
We're skipping first. Yeah, like literal blast casting. By the way, if you guys don't know, we're probably going to be hanging around. Well, not probably. We're definitely going to be hanging around in the Discord, chilling, watching the league starts. So if you, I don't know, I think I have a command for you. So this is Eleshar's channel. If you want to join, give him a follow. Twitch.tv.
I need to start uploading content, dude. I haven't uploaded in a month.
This is Grimro's channel, and obviously you're on my channel now. So yeah, if you guys want to hang around on league start,
muted himself. You muted yourself, Tina.
I didn't mute myself here. So yeah, if you guys want to hang around on league start, we'll be around. And wish you guys all the best, and hope you find the build that you want to play. And yeah, actual.
If you want the strats, man, the Scourge strats, the insider scoop on pretty much everything there is to know, these 3 channels, man. It's the juice. But yeah, all right, cool. Thanks for the podcast, guys. Appreciate the chat.